Then let's call this meeting of the Board of Education to order 7:12. Do it all rise for the pledge of allegiance.
And allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation under indivisible, and justice.
All right, just one note before we get started. Due to my recent medical issues, I was unable to do the homework I needed to do for tonight's executive session. I'm going to move that to the next one. Dr. Willett, I believe we have some acknowledgements.
We do. So tonight we have Lynn Bridge, who is our DECA advisor. She's here with a number of our honored students who went and competed in the national conference for DECA. And, we have a strong tradition in Tolland of strong performance on that. Students are amazing and they do a great job. And so tonight, Ms. Bridge is here to highlight the accolades and the successes of our young adults as they competed and won and honored us in the national competition business. Welcome, and I'll hand that over to you, Ms. Bridge, to walk through it for us.
Michael. I love proud.
Coach the bench.
I love proud. I'm approaching the red. Yeah, so I wanted to make sure that you got to meet some of our champions, our international competitors that we have for DECA. Before we get started, I wanted to go over some statistics with you that have to do with our DECA club. And I do this typically at the end of the year with all of my DECA students because it really is quite impressive and it's a great way to end the year. So we currently in 12 years, we've been running DECA for 12 years in Tolland. We have had 258 state finalists. That is 46% of all students that went to the state competition ended up as a finalist. That means top 6. We've had 155 international qualifiers. So that's 28% of the kids that went to competition went on to the international competition. We've had 16 international medals, 11 international finalists, 6 international champions, 2 international scholarship winners, 5 gold medal certifications for the school store, 15 Connecticut DECA state officers, and 5 DECA state presidents in just 12 years. This year, we have 36 students compete at the state level. So that was 55% of our club. So we had 65 kids in the DECA club at the high school. We've had 19 finalists. So 53% of the kids that participated in competition were finalists. 14 went to the international competition. 13 of them, all of the ones that competed, 1 did not go with us, unfortunately, but 13 that went to the international competition all got top honors with an award of excellence. We had 2 international medals and 1 international finalist finishing top 6 in the world. Pretty amazing. So if you don't mind, I would like for each one of them to get up, introduce themselves, tell you what they competed in, okay, at the international competition. And maybe you could tell them one thing that you love about DECA or learn from DECA. Okay, sound good? So we have our first person coming up would be Julia Bollier. And Julia, come on down.
Hi, my name is Julia Bollier. The past 2 years, I've competed in financial services team decision making with my partner. Last year, we earned first place at the state competition, and this year, third place. The thing I love most about DECA is the opportunities it gives students. Help students get out of their comfort zone, try new things. One thing I've learned a lot about is networking and how to present yourself professionally. And these are all skills that all students need in high school and in their future. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Nita Bagyat. I have been a DECA for 4 years. This is my third year competing in hotel lodging management. The past 2 years, I have gotten top 5 in the state, and this year I was first place. That's amazing. When I first joined DECA, I'm gonna be for real, I didn't want to join it. I was like, "Oh, business, boring." But honestly, DECA and Miss Rich changed my life. Because of this club, I'm now going into political science and attempting to be a lawyer. I have learned so much. And the number one thing is definitely similar to what Julia said, is the connection. I have met so many other inspiring students, and not just students. I have gotten connections to colleges as well through DECA, and it truly just changed everything. Thank you so much. Hi, I'm Juliet Carey. I'm a junior, and I've been doing DECA for 3 years now, and I compete in travel and tourism with my partner. And all 3 years, I've been a finalist in the state competition, and then this year we were lucky enough to go to the national competition. So that was really cool. And honestly, DECA is such an amazing opportunity for me to be a part of because when I was a freshman, I would not think I would be the person I am today. I was always the quiet kid sitting in the corner, and I really didn't think I could be myself. But now, since DECA has shown me, I really can be myself, and just being myself got to the national competition. And so, honestly, I just love DECA, and it's such an amazing opportunity.
Hi, my name is Sophia Cunningham. I've been in DECA now for 3 years. I've only been competing for 2 in hotel lodging management. I played second my first year in the state and then third this year in the state. It's a cliche, but after COVID, a lot of kids I know my age weren't great with their public speaking. They also weren't great with just connecting other people in general because everything was virtual. Through DECA, I've learned how to talk and communicate with other people around me, specifically professionally instead of just like vernacular and terms like I wouldn't say in the workplace. I've been able to fill out like better job applications and learn more about what I'm able to do. And it's such a confidence boost when you're able to talk to people in a more professional manner. And that's something I feel like kids really need these days, especially our age range. That's thank you.
Hey, I'm Samir Kaushal, and I competed in automotive service marketing for the past 2 years. Last year I got fourth place, and this year I got first. One thing I love about DECA is that like it's like really been like good for helping me like learn how to network with people. I've been able to do that a lot. All the events like Power Trip, States, and ICDC. That's been really great. I've also learned how to like present really well and think on my feet. And it's been like really helped me figure out like what I want to do with my life. Like if I didn't join DECA, I would have no idea what I want to do. But since I joined, I figured out that I love business and I'm going to business for college now.
Yes, Naomi, and this is my second year in DECA. I compete in sports and entertainment marketing, but at nationals, I competed for the school store in our SKE event. And through DECA, I have really been able to hone the skills that I already have inside of me. With DECA, I already had the public speaking skills inside of me, but DECA really brought them out and allowed me to communicate in a much better way. So I really wouldn't be standing up here. I wouldn't be at that table. And I really wouldn't be in a lot of the positions I am in life today without DECA and the skills that it's taught me. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name's Austria. I'm a junior, and I've been in DECA for all 3 years of my high school career. This year, I competed in sports and entertainment marketing with my partner Audrey at the state competition, and at nationals in California, we competed in small business enterprise, which highlights our school store. And I think DECA is so important because it teaches you things that you wouldn't normally learn in a normal classroom setting about the real world. And it's allowed me to not only network a product, but network myself. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Josh. I've been in DECA for 4 years. I was the vice president of our Tolland chapter. Now, to me, DECA is special because within high school and the Tolland public school systems, we learn a lot. Mrs. Bridge can teach you about the 4 Ps of marketing. You can learn about the Great Gatsby or To Kill a Mockingbird. But DECA to me was really shown how to how to use these skills that we learn in the real world. It shows that this isn't only something that is for 4 years and we move on. There is actually a purpose that we're doing this, and it's for something like DECA, where you go and you compete and you go and try to solve a role play case. And it's really an opportunity that I think I'm very proud and happy that I've done, and I think would be amazing to continue in the future.
Hi, my name is Maximus Smallhauser. I've done DECA 4 years, and I initially joined because my brother was one of the founding members of this chapter's DECA program. So I was like, I got some shoes to fill. And so when I ended up joining, I wasn't really that much into it, but then Mrs. Bridge told me I had a very business mind in terms of academics. So DECA gave me a way to kind of explore that business mind, and it really helped me learn what I wanted to do in life. And then when I ended up competing, I did pretty well this year, and I went to the international competition, ICDC, which is the exact same place where my brother went and did really well. So it meant a lot to me, and I had a really fun time, and I learned a lot. So DECA's awesome.
Everyone, my name is Tolland. I was the president this year of Tolland DECA. I compete with my partner Josh in hospitality services, team decision making, and placed first in the state the last 2 years and then international the last 2 years. So DECA to me means like everything. I wrote all about it in my college essay. That's how I got into college. Are you kidding? And DECA just taught me so much, but above all, it's the sense of community and these people that just fill my heart and make the memories that I'll remember for high school. Like when I think of high school, I'll think of DECA because of all the memories on the trips, of all those meetings that we planned out together, the late 8 p.m. Google meeting calls, on top of the skills of leadership, organization, creativity, and all these 21st century skills that are necessary for a student to evolve and work and do great things. It's just a sense of like connection between people that is what sets DECA apart from everything else about high school. And I just thank you, Mrs. Bridge, and thank you everyone. And it's an amazing experience.
Hi, everyone. My name is Rosie. I'm a sophomore, and next year I will be Tolland DECA's chapter president. I competed in apparel and accessories marketing, and I placed first at the state level and sixth at the international level. And I would have to say that one of my favorite aspects of DECA is the profound effect that it's had on almost every aspect of my education, whether it be confidence when presenting or test taking, and additionally, the ability to network with a group of peers who share the similar values that I do. Thank you.
So these are our champions, and I have so many more. Next year to see what we can do. We will be headed to Charleston, South Carolina, for the power trip, and then we will be going back to Orlando for the international competition. But one thing I do want to mention is something that this team has done for the second year in a row. We have actually hosted a breakout session for over 250 people at our power trip. That happened first in DC and then next in Austin, and we have been invited back again for Charleston to give one of the presentations that DECA hosts. So we're very excited about that. We take it seriously, and these guys really rise to the occasion and do an absolutely phenomenal job. I'm so very proud of them. So,
I'll stay standing if you want to stand.
I will clap the loudest. I promise. I got questions. What's a power?
Yes,
you wanna do it?
power trips essentially was, well, it might have changed a little bit since I was there, but essentially it was a sort of a leadership conference, right?
Yes.
And you go down there and you gain all these traits and qualities through the seminars and whatnot that you're taught. But it's also a DECA learning experience sort of mixed into that, I say, as well. And so it's a great sort of pre-trial for an ICDC type of sort of event, so to speak. And so the fact that they're hosting I think 2 years in a row now going on three, seminars themselves is a huge accomplishment and a huge deal. And so, and it just highlights the brilliant minds that are there. And Mrs. Bridge, I could go on and on and on and on and on about Mrs. Bridge and what she's meant for DECA and Tolland, but not to get into Power Trip leadership conference that sort of helps everybody learn ahead of state competitions and international competitions.
Thank you. I mean, that's awesome. You are all absolutely inspirational in that. Thank you for doing what you do and sharing it.
I think we have Amelia Lichen, Mira Shake, and is it Max?
Max is
Max is
here.
here. I saw him,
Amelia.
so it's
Yep,
just
Max
Amelia.
and Amelia and Mira.
Mira
who
does not-
were unable to make it this evening. Yes.
So just to honor them.
Jen,
I just, thank you so much for coming. You have no idea how happy it makes us, especially right now, to hear directly from you. And I bet you the 44 people we have online are really happy that they just heard from you too. So just great. You guys are so poised, and I've known some of you since you were so little, and I'm just so proud of you and everything that you've accomplished. So thank you so much. And thank you, Ms. Bridge, for everything that you do for our students every day. And I'm very excited for my son to take personal finance next year. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
anyone?
They're awesome.
You're looking at me like it's an
I
honor.
thought you raised your hand.
I can. First of all, I think I recognized several faces when we were in rounds a few weeks ago at high school, and you impressed me that day in your classrooms and when we sat at the conference table for the wrap up. It was mind blowing. And just the way you held yourselves this evening and communicated why DECA is so fantastic and what Miss Bridge and has done for you, and then how it's, kind of put you on the path that you want to be on is phenomenal. And just keep doing what you're doing. You have impressed me beyond words. I'm sure, like Jen said, there's several people that are on, and I look forward to hearing what you all are doing in the world when you go to college and on, because it's a bright future, bright future. So thank you for coming tonight.
Tony, I'll just add, we'll see, you're going to be chapter president next year, and you're going to be in your junior year next year, which means that leaves senior year for running for state office. Potential, future state officer, no pressure. But in seriousness though, I was just telling Lisa before the meeting, and we were joking a little bit. This is my absolute favorite first chunk of the meeting every year, because every year it sort of revealed to me that there are more and more kids who benefit from having Mrs. Bridge in our schools, number one, but number two, from having DECA as a program. And that can leak into all the business classes in our schools right now. And so again, I could go on and on and on about how awesome DECA is. I'm so glad you did DECA, and I hope you're enjoying it as much as I was fortunate to. So super congratulations, Mrs. Bridge. Congratulations to you, students. Congratulations to each and every one of you. I can't wait to see the results next year.
I said the same thing, and I'm looking at next year's leadership. Don't be a stranger. I want you to bring your team back here next year. I want updates. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We'll post pictures from Charles.
Is that a new addition, by the way? Is that a new
Yeah,
addition?
we've never been there.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Charleston, Charlotte. All right, so, see.
Tony, mind if I say something quickly?
Missed you up there.
Sorry, no worries at all. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
You can, awesome. Just wanted to apologize for not being in there in person. Those that are looking for a career in financial services, you're gonna have to work a couple late nights every now and then. So, but give me a heads up. You're already on the awesome path. Let me know as you're going into college if you need an internship. So congrats again. Sorry, Miss Bridge, that I couldn't be there. I know you're gonna yell at me offline. So apologies in advance. I'll see you soon.
All right. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you. Are you done with them? Everything else? Okay.
All right. Do we have any additions to the agenda?
No, thank you.
All right, seeing none, move on. Entertain a motion for the approval of the May 22nd and May 29th minutes. So moved. We have a second?
Second.
Discussion.
No, I was just in motion.
Oh. Then going on to vote, Jaden.
Aye.
Reedy.
Aye.
Brian.
Aye.
Bill.
Aye.
Aye. Jen.
Aye.
Dana.
Aye.
Katie.
Aye.
And Dan.
Aye.
Public participation. Dr. Willett, if you want to get our lovely timer prepared, I will read the blurb. Members of the Tolland Board of Education welcome members of the public to share their thoughts and ideas at this time. When appropriate to do so, members of the board and the administration may respond to comments during points of information. However, in consideration of those in attendance and in an effort to proceed in a timely manner, follow-up discussion may need to take place outside of the meeting setting. If you would like to speak online, please raise your virtual hand in the room. Raise your hand. We will alternate back and forth. And as always, please start with your name and address for the minutes. Ready, Dr. Willett? Okay. Kate Vallow.
Hi, good evening. Kate Vallow, 80 Tolland Green. Thank you for the opportunity to share a couple of thoughts this evening. I had a conversation earlier today about our school system. I'm in a particularly reflective place right now, having a daughter who is about to graduate. And I was told by a young family that they're really considering leaving town due to the lack of support for the schools right now in our community. And I found myself really sharing all the things that I've been reflecting about what an absolutely excellent education my child has received in the Tolland Public Schools. I was talking about particularly the leadership from the superintendent to the administrators at every school that she's been a part of, to all of the absolutely amazing educators that both of my children have had the pleasure to work with. And of course, Board of Education after Board of Education. I know that turns over from time to time, but I appreciate you all as well. And what I mentioned was that the only thing that we're actually really lacking are the resources. And that continues to be somewhat dire. So I appreciate your ongoing effort to advocate for our students and all of the wonderful people that make up this school system. And I was ready to come here and talk to you about how awesome everybody was. And then we actually got to see that ourselves with those students. So thank you to those students for taking the time to be here this evening and really show us what amazing things can happen within our schools. And then I see my time is running down, but I wanted to ask a question about the way that the schools and the towns partner with the town on behalf of mental health. That's something I'm really curious about. So if that's possible to be addressed, that would be really appreciated. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Val. In the room. All right. Katie.
Good evening, Katie Stargarter, 8 Lisa Lane, here speaking as a resident, only as a resident. I wanted to express my appreciation for the Board of Education. This time of year is full of a lot of celebrations. It was really cool to see the DECA kids come in. I know 8th grade graduation is tomorrow and the high school graduation. This is the time of year with a lot of celebration. And throughout that, there has been struggles regarding getting a budget passed. And I know that this has taken extra effort from the Board of Education. So as a parent and as a resident in town, I wanted to let you know that I appreciate you. I appreciate what you're doing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Katie. Anybody in the room? Okay, looking back online. That if you'd like to speak, please raise your hand. It's none. Make sure I'm not missing any bill. Should go to the top. All right, one more time. Moving on. Correspondence.
Coming in tonight, we had 7 emails, various talking about budget and just various ideas of where you could find some savings. Just so it was great to read and hear just the different ideas coming in. So there was 7.
Points of information. Would anybody from the board like to speak?
I just wanted to say that I wanted to thank all of the parents and students who spoke last night at the town council meeting. I didn't want to publicly participate then, given, you know, my role as board ed member, knowing we were coming in here tonight as well, but I do see some of the familiar names online that also spoke last night, and I just want to thank everyone for speaking up. For having the courage to, you know, tell your stories. We had a student speak. Honestly, a lot of it was really heartbreaking, and I just wanted you to know that I'm listening, appreciate you, and again, just thank you for coming in person last night as well as.
Anybody else?
Can I say something?
Absolutely.
So I mentioned it when the students were still here in the room, but I was able to go to the THS rounds, Tony with the. Just nine, right?
Yeah.
So like, and I'm a mathematic mind, and I was in there going, these kids, these young adults absolutely impressed me so much, from the classrooms that we were in to the art that we saw, the pottery that we saw. You were at the conference room table with us, you know, talking about why these classes are so phenomenal for them and for their future and their college opportunities. They can utilize several of these classes for college credits, which saves parents and students, you know, when it comes to taking classes on the high school level and college level, but in high school. The students were so impressive. Mr. Bowen was fantastic. I really enjoyed the roundabout opening discussion we had at the table. Just seeing again, as Jenna said, having these students come in tonight and speak and talk and speak as eloquently as they did, and seeing those kids at the high school through the rounds, and even in just the other students in the hallways. It's what a fantastic display of what Tolland Public Schools can produce, and the support with teachers like Mrs. Bridge, or and I forget what the art teacher's name is. What's her name? What's the art teacher's name at the high school? She's phenomenal, and the students are phenomenal. So it's just about cultivating the entire student, and they showed a lot of that, a lot of promise. So it's wonderful. For those who haven't had a chance to do rounds, please take the time. Take some time off of work, take a personal day, and go see what our students are doing from Birch Grove all the way to the high school, because it's an amazing experience to really get in schools.
And I'll just chime in on that, and also these students that came in today. And I'm not kidding when I say inspirational. We'll certainly talk it when we do agendas coming up, but I want more of this. You know, I want to see. I want to parade what these young adults are doing. And what we're sending out into the world is unlike anything I've seen before. And I think this is, you know, this is our product. This is what we're doing, and all the late nights that we're doing in here. That's why, and that's what thrills me to watch. So again, congratulations to each of you, not just that are doing the DECA, but the youngsters that we talked to that we're doing the art.
Mm-hmm.
You know, don't get me wrong. Even my stick figures need interpretation. So are not mine, but it was so amazing to look at this and try to figure out how you come up with that and how you do it. It's beyond me. So we have truly amazing future that are in our schools, and so we're going to make sure that we show that. We take an action to do it.
Michelle Rowe, the art teachers, Miss Rowe.
Miss Rowe, I'm sorry, it escaped me because I was on the spot. She was fantastic.
the portfolios from the students. Basically.
And then just in response to Ms. Vallow, got your question. We'll certainly get back to you with some answers. I want to do a little bit more research. Get back to you with the answer to your question. Anybody else like to speak during question? Moving on, then student representative.
Okay, so not too much because school ends in 2 days, but speaking of which, finals is tomorrow and also on Friday. They're during half-day schedules. We have blocks 1 and 2 finals tomorrow, blocks 3 and 4 finals on Friday. I'm really lucky. I don't have any finals tomorrow. I'm gonna go sleep in and go to stores. But I do have finals on Friday, and all underclassmen and juniors have to take all their finals, but a lot of seniors have kept up A's this semester and do not have to take any finals.
This week, there was also a lot of senior activities, like the senior walk, class day, class night, and the senior skip day.
And finally, senior portraits were last week, and they just came in today. I looked really good. And there are more opportunities for senior portraits, senior portfolios next fall. So if any upcoming seniors want to take advantage of that, it'll be offered next fall. So that was it for our final Board of Ed speech. But I'm totally lying because we're both going to be back next year.
Yep.
So, don't wait up. So this is going to be our last one for the school year. I really appreciate having this opportunity. I've loved being in here and being able to share my thoughts, my views, my opinions, what's going on at the school, what I think should be going on at the school. And I can't wait to duel it out next year. I really watch it.
1 year at a time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a really great opportunity. You've obviously done this before. I have not. I was very nervous this first meeting, but it's gotten a lot easier now. And it's such an amazing opportunity. I'm so glad I did it. Obviously, that's why I'm doing it next year. And yeah, I can't wait.
And let me say thank you both. We asked at the beginning of the year, we asked you both to participate, and join in the conversations. I think you both have done that exceptionally. You've made both the position and the schools proud, and I'm excited that you'll be back. Hopefully not just for the budget. Hopefully we talk about other things that are both challenging and exciting, and that your perspectives will help drive the direction that we as a board want to go. So thank you all. If anybody can, yeah.
You guys are awesome. You're awesome. To think I've known you guys since kindergarten, and you're so impressive and amazing, and you've accomplished so much. And to have you here and be part of this world is both crazy and really great. So thank you for everything that you did. I'm so glad you're coming back next year because I've really missed you. Thank you.
So more of a question. So Sarah, have you joined that? Gotcha. So next objective, there you go.
Oh, she's tried.
Yeah, you tried?
About it right before the meeting.
That's awesome.
And Sarah said, no, I don't like this whole thing.
You've got until what, October next year or something like that? So there you go. But it's ditto what both of them just said. Sarah, you mentioned how you were nervous here in the first meeting and how that's difficult. I was nervous for my first meeting with 2.5 years ago. I'm still nervous. And now we're dealing with big numbers and all these things and whatnot. But to see you both sort of break out of that shell and be willing to, participate in these meetings. Bravo. So thank you for being here. Good luck on finals. Good luck on finals. You got it. You got it. Okay.
Anybody? That's how you move.
I just move it.
Okay. I'm not even looking anymore. Thank you both, and it's always feel free if you need to go study. All right, moving on, committee and liaison report. Policy? Okay. FFC.
Yeah, thanks. FFC actually just met prior to this. We were fortunate to have Pete with us as well for a fields and grounds agreement. Excuse me. Biggest things kind of, we're gonna be reviewing the actual contract, because that 3-year contract is expiring. The last time that was updated, I guess, was 2021. Used to be a 1-year contract, now it was moved to a 3-year. So Walt brought it to the attention of FFC, thought it might be a good idea to bring it up to the board because there's a couple changes, a couple opportunities where I think we might be able to make some shift based on all the comments that we got from Pete. So that was one good topic. As far as like a month end budget goes, it's still rather tight. We were expecting a little bit more coming in from excess funds. Unfortunately, we're closer when Walt kind of projected between $0 and $100,000 at the end of the year, closer to the $20,000 mark, but there's a couple funds that might settle, which could change the special education, things of that nature. So hoping for a little bit more come end of the month, but we're not exactly sure where it is. And then the other topic we discussed, kind of, we've got a great healthy operating account for kind of the food service budget. It's going to allow us to really spend down on savings of capital improvements that we've got. So we're going to be able to remove capital improvements from kind of the town side and just future budget expenditures just from the program that we're currently running from the food services area. And then Family Resource Center, outside of the operating budget, these are dollars that are kind of all grant and things of that nature. So Walt was able to confirm that we are able to utilize our fund for the K Readiness program. So any and all of those families who don't qualify, I guess, for the accelerated enrollment plan for the new kindergarten legislation that got put in place, they can now attend and receive transportation to K Readiness at no cost for 2024 to 2025. And that's not a budget impact. This is strictly grant funds outside of operating budget. So didn't find excess funds anywhere. Just wanted to make that one clear. But awesome news in that regard. But still a lot of work to do on operating budget and just obviously the budget that we're going to be discussing today for 2024, 2025 for following year. Sorry. That's it for me though.
One quick question, Dan. So you said that you're looking at bringing that grounds contract to the board. What do you think of that? A couple months, couple weeks?
No, I think it could probably get, I mean, and Walt corrects me, it could probably get added to the next board meeting because it was our first read at it and not a lot of massive changes. Just want to make sure that we're socializing it with the Board of Education so we know, obviously elevating it from subcommittee just so that it's everyone on the Board of Education's aware of the contract that we are approving. But I think there are a couple of areas where we might be able to have a better discussion around kind of future use of what is being funded by Board of Education budget, what is being funded by town council budget or town budget, things like maintenance on baseball fields that are technically on school grounds, who takes care of what, why, who is taking care of what, things of that nature. Just Pete goes out of his way to do a lot for the town and just want to make sure that everyone's aware of what is being funded by the school, what is being funded by the town. So honestly, the presentation was ready for FFC today. So Walt, if you don't disagree, I would say the next board meeting.
Yeah, it could definitely go for next board. And it's an agreement versus contract, but it's town.
Okay, fair. Thank you.
No, it's the right stuff, right? It's correct.
It's on the agenda planning queue.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Communication.
We have a change of meeting will be tomorrow. There's some vacations, traveling and different things so tomorrow at 2:00. That's about right. You're free. Come join us.
We haven't met this month yet.
Negotiation.
Just budget.
All right, thank you. Moving on. Fair report. I spent a serious amount of time trying to figure out my report for tonight. Sorting through the messages sent by both my logic and emotion provided quite the journey through myself. such as growth. I want to start with a good and true example of the wonder of our town. I'd like to personally thank the Conservation Commission. My wife and youngest spent last night scouring the loose conservation area in search for 8 elusive Bigfoot. Victoria was beyond the moon as she came home and shared the 8 selfies that she found. That she found each one of these. I'm thrilled with the commission's effort to instill excitement for our beautiful land with the next generation. So my thanks. Now, the elephant in the room. As you are all aware, in preparation for the next referendum, the town council decided to induce approximately $650K in additional reductions. That was to be expected. What was a surprise to me was the council chose to apply it all to the Board of Education. As you're aware, the board is going to talk tonight to discuss how we are going to tackle that. So I'm certain each board member will weigh in, will have your thoughts and your opinions, and I'm confident what comes out at the end of the night will be the best that we can possibly do. You know me, I like quotes. I like to look at one and try to think about it. And the one I came to was from a lady named Gina Carey, who said, "A strong person looks at a challenge in the eye and gives it a wink." Now, I'm not saying that to make light the decisions that we have to do tonight. Quite the opposite. To all the conversations we're going to have. But going forward, this is very difficult. But I say that because of what we as a group have promised to do. Going back to our goals, and I love our goals that we put together in this one, but one of them says to foster a data-driven, positive learning environment focused on strong academics, professional development, and meaningful social and emotional support for our students. You look back at these young adults that came in today and the ones that we've been talking about, you look at the art that's around the room, that's what we're going to work. And regardless of the reductions that are pushed to our budget, I am absolutely confident that the people in this room, the people in the staff, and even the people in the town are going to do everything we can over the next year to do exactly this. We are going to find the magic we can. We've got staff that is going to bend even further than they should be asked to bend, but they're going to do it so that they can find that one student that will be saved, that will be uplifted. But we as a board, when we get done with this budget, when we pass that, we're not going to rest on what laurels we get. We're going to go into the next conversation. I know each of the subcommittees is currently sharpening pencils and figuring out some absolutely wonderful things that we can implement on the budget that we have. We're going to celebrate our achievements. We're going to figure out a way around our challenges. We are going to look what comes out of this budget in the eye, and we're going to figure out what it is. That being said, moving on, Dr. Willett, Superintendent's report.
So, as Mr. Holt said, you're aware that the $645,000 reduction is the board's voting consideration. A communication was sent to the board. This agenda item specifies exactly how much what the percentage is for the increase. Of course, you've been provided some information for your consideration about possibilities of things that you could reduce. I know that the board's been all along very sensitive to wanting to make sure that we keep staff reductions to a minimum. So the consideration staff are put out for the board to think about for this meeting and discuss, do that. The only additional staff at this point would be 2.0 FTE for para educators. The rest of the information, is other items that do provide kind of a challenge for us as an operational challenges for us as a district, some educational impacts. I can go over all of those if you want. You have the information, so I don't know whether you want me to highlight these one by one or whether you want to just jump into the discussion. I want to be sensitive to your time and how you would like this to be presented.
give us a highlight, but I'd like to hear the amalgamation. Not just what's gonna happen because it's 650, but what the effects are, so that we can discuss as a whole picture.
So overall effects of this budget, all the way from, say, the first iteration from the board, the adoption of it, through the series of reductions that have to have been made. Just to kind of give you the sense of impact, I'll try to do this in like 3 minutes, 5 minutes. The district has reduced co-teaching. The district has reduced ELA textbooks. It has eliminated curriculum liaisons, team leaders, and grade leaders. It has went down by behavior intervention, reduction in our tutoring for special ed and general education students. The TALC program has been completely eliminated. TALC is an alternative program that we have for students who are having difficulty, doing success in the general regular school program, and so it was there for them to help them graduate if they weren't successful. We've made special education transportation reductions we'll talk about, summer maintenance, library, business education, textbooks, materials, Lexia, programming, which is programming that allows us to tailor material to students at their different levels. You'll recall that we eliminated all the Windows 11 upgrades and pushed them back. The various monitors, desktops, Prometheans. We also eliminated staff. There was one ELA teacher, one social studies teacher, 2 science teachers, one world language teacher, who's a French teacher, one librarian, and now it's 3 paraeducators. In addition to those, the budget considerations for tonight include additional services. There's an education service called Nearpod that we use for students to help them with literacy and learning. We are eliminating potentially here the extended school year. There's an extended school year program to help students with special education. There's also an intervention group that typically we try to include in that are on the margins of potentially becoming special education or that may need help. We would have to eliminate most of the intervention students served, and we would keep it to the special education students. The other items here would be elimination of all of the Ed Tech initiative purchases for the Chromebooks, grades 3, 6, and 9. Reduction in special education, transportation, and McKinney-Vento transportation, which is homeless student transportation. I can go into that in more detail if you want. We're looking for alternatives to do that. That's trying to get it in the 3-minute, 5-minute zone. That's about a flyover.
So what we'll do now, we'll go around, give each of the board members a chance to speak, offer thoughts. What I'd like to end up with are any adjustments that we'd like to do to the scenario that Dr. Willett has provided. And then, vote as a board to approve that those would be the reduction, the way we deal with the reductions. But for now, please raise your hand, let me know, and we will go around and let everybody speak. Taking the first.
Yeah, I know, crazy. Dr. Willett, the Chromebooks, the reduction of, can you explain that a little more for me? I don't think I'm understanding it. Can you explain that $210,000 reduction and when the impact begins and what is?
So, a couple of boards ago in COVID, we received some funding to augment or help our educational technology initiative. We also received I think it's a very large amount of money from the PTOs at the time and so on. And it started the investment, and a plan was created that was shared with the board to segue kind of away from desktop machines to our Chromebooks for what was called the Ed Tech Initiative, or 1-to-1. Each student received a Chromebook that grades through the school system, basically 8 received Chromebooks, 9 through 12 received laptops, and that's kind of where it was born from. And so as we may segue, we've segued in a lot of the industry for textbooks and media materials has segued away from physical text and into this digital realm. Almost everything these days for education is digital. Most of the material is digital, although there's some text that we still have to use. Now companies will generally sell the digital product and then give you the text with it that they want you to buy a digital product. So anyway, most of the learning and materials, most of the learning in classrooms, was done with the Chromebooks and the laptops, collaborative learning, kids doing projects, doing them together in ways that many of us who came before this generation really can't conceptualize, as well as some that are right up against it. So for instance, when a student does a social studies paper now, they can collaborate on the paper together, even if they're not in the school building after school hours and homework and things like that. Kids are still collaborating on documents. In industry, we know how to do that, but in education, that wasn't part of the picture until the last 5-10 years, really, where kids would be engaging and collaborating through these devices. So from an equity perspective, kids also couldn't necessarily be expected to purchase them themselves. So that's why the initiative provided it to all students. And they've been used ubiquitously throughout the district, and now are embedded in our daily operations. So every child really, as they come up through the grades, they become trained in first keyboarding and then how to use these devices. And by the time they get into TIS and especially TMF and PHS, they're fully engaging in them and using them collaboratively in assignments, using them for their media, using them for Khan Academy. All the testing is done on these things. We have standardized testing for SBACs and what's called NGSS, which is science, and then we have what's called NEWAs or NWEAs and IABs, and all of these things are done on these devices now. We've also segued away from desktops, whereas we used to have labs, the desktops. Now the labs are kind of going the way of the dinosaur, and these devices have replaced them, and the kids use them in almost every class. So by making this reduction, what we've done is there was an educational technology initiative plan that talked about how we would cycle these. So a child receiving one in 3rd grade would have it for, 3rd, 4th, 5th grade. And then that device, after 3 years on the 3.1 to the 4-year point, would get recycled, sold back, and then we would invest in another one for the incoming 3rd grader. So it was a cycle of a child having one for 3 years. I think when most people think of the devices that they think of the ones they have at home. And the ones that are in school being used every single day, 3 years is quite a long time. They usually get beat up pretty bad in that 3-year period, which is evidenced by the condition that we try to sell them back in is pretty poor. A lot of times the trade-in value is not super high. But in any case, it's a 3-year replacement cycle. So kids coming in 3, 3, 4, 5, and then it gets sold back and you make the purchases with new ones coming in 3rd. Same thing at the middle school level, 6, 7, 8, and then they're always getting the new ones in 6th grade. And in high school, 9, 10, 11, 12, they're always getting a new one in 9th. So it was a replacement cycle in 3, 6, and 9. And that's the plan that was put forward to the board at the time. And so we've been running on that replacement cycle paradigm for the last few years. This would be pushing that recycling methodology back a year. So we would not replace them with the devices. We would try to keep the devices going that we have without replacing the oldest ones with newer ones. So we would just cycle the devices around and try to prevent, try to piece together the ones that start failing with, other devices that we have. But that's it. We might not sell back or turn over as many this year. We may keep them for parts. Right now, our IT department, there's only 3 people engages students to help us, with some of the labor. And our IT department does a lot of the replacing of things on these devices. So we're going to expect that would, happen even more in the next year because these are old and will be failing at a higher rate. And we're hoping to get through next year, just kind of scratch by so we can reinitiate this. Or unless I can find some alternative.
Sure. So does that mean you said we've been slowly phasing out the desktop computers compared to when this initiative began? how available are those desktop computers in our schools compared to now?
We really can't rely on the labs anymore. They don't exist the same way as they did prior to the initiative. It's mostly these devices. There is one lab, well, there are, if you go to the CAD lab, for instance, would be one that would still have around for the higher processors. But that, you'll notice that one of the things that we were going to be doing was, instead of buying replacement desktop units, we were going to actually get a lower, we were going to jettison the desktop units teachers were using, just use the laptops and just invest in monitors that the teachers could use with their laptops. So we've been trying to cycle out the more expensive older items and not replace them. That was put on hold in iteration 2 or so of the budget process this year. When we pushed back Windows 11 and then pushed back the purchase of the monitors and so on. So we're holding on to the desktops as long as we can. Some of them are not going to run with Windows 11. And so, we're pushing all of that back a year, hoping to address it next year instead.
Okay, thank you. And then just one other thing, and I may have more questions later, but I just want to think about that for a second. And then another thing, I think we got I want to say first draft of this, I want to say either last week or very beginning of this week. That looked a little different than what this looks like right now. And so can you just confirm to me that the effort was made to reduce the amount of people we are reducing from the budget? It looks like instead of that position that was up for cut, instead of just the 2 paraeducators, it would have been a teacher as well. Now we've kept that teacher, and it looks like we've got the extended school year line here, the bi-media line, and the custodial services. Am I getting that?
Yeah, the first one came out June 7th, and then it was updated Monday, I believe. Yeah, I think it was Monday. The next one came out. The first iteration had the reduction of a teacher. And then there were efforts made to try to prevent us from reducing that teacher. But we also had other adjustments in here. For instance, you'll notice that I offered my compensation for next year be limited so that there would be some element of some money coming back. There were also some individuals that that has changed. And so between that time and this time, I wanted to adjust for covering that, that teacher, so we didn't have to reduce the teacher. The items, the 2 documents you're speaking of are both available on the dashboard, one right next to the other. The major difference is really that the teacher then is mostly replaced by the lines that you see in red on the document that came out, I think it was Monday. So the extended school year reduction, reduction on the video software and things that we use for promotion for kids, and the custodial supplies, that takes the chunk basically of the teacher that we would have had to have reduced, and instead reduces those lines. And there are adjustments because instead of, we're not going to reduce a staff member, then we also have to make changes to those, the FICA, the Social Security, those things that were there. So it's like kind of moving things around. And then I'm the only staff member that, well, not only, but I'm the staff member that would take a set thing for next year, and I didn't include anybody else in that. And so the first iteration had some other included in this one. And that's trying to adjust so we can keep that staff, that teacher, and make the appropriate adjustments. The other piece was McKinney-Vento homeless transportation. I went back to the drawing board on that one and tried to take a little bit more out of that line because we're going to be trying to replace that with our own van and our own driver that is a district employee. And potentially I would back that person up. So that would mean that we would be able to save most of the funds that we would have otherwise spent on the McKinney-Vento transportation.
If I back that person up.
So if that person can't drive the kids that are homeless, then I would jump in and drive the kids that are homeless, or we would do something to cover to make sure we had redundancy, because we can't be without redundancy for a homeless situation. And right now, if you have a company do it, then you have redundancy naturally. But if we can't do it, we got to have a backup. So that was something that this individual who I've been working with can't do. Because they would do it on a daily basis.
Right.
And I would move my calendar around a bit to do that to help. So, because I've done, in the past, I used to have what's called a Class D license, so I would be able to help out a little bit in a pinch. So that would allow us to save the entire Canyon Vento transport. And then we can also save, we're taking some chances here, but instead of that special ed transport, we would cut down by that special ed transport. Now, if we ended up having to provide it, we would just keep that and have to figure it out next year. But we're taking a chance that we, instead of having that set aside, we would reduce that.
So in this new state of reductions, not only are you becoming a backup, for the services there, but you're also, I think this is 2 or 3 years in a row, correct me if I'm wrong or don't, I completely understand your privacy here. Your willingness to take the 1% increase versus again, what would have taken place. Just think that's something to highlight once again, as a board, that superintendent could be serving as a backup driver instead of serving as superintendent in places he's needed. Again, I may ask you to come back to me. I want to process quite a bit of that. Thank you. Those are very good answers, Dr. Wood. Thank you.
Jay, just a key and just something, one of the direction, for lack of a better term, that we asked Dr. Willett to look at as he was coming up with this scenario, again, just to start the conversation, was do what we can to protect staff. And so I think what you see in this scenario is that, there's increased risk in some areas, there's increased responsibilities in some areas. But this is what we do. This is an option for what we do to try to protect that one position that was being.
Just to clarify, whatever staff we can save, I'm in full support. So just to clarify, I didn't know otherwise.
I just want to make sure that, it was, this is kind of, we gave him direction as to, give Dr. Willett direction. Right. The things start looking these ways because I think this is the way, the feeling that we're getting. Okay, agree?
Sure. So first thing I want to say is thank you very much for looking at it through the lens of less or no employment cuts, teacher cuts. We've obviously been kind of pointed on that, so I appreciate that effort. Just to clarify what Jane just said, the 1% increase, is that you're only getting 1% or you're cutting from a 3 or whatever it was by 1%?
Let me chime in on one thing. Just to be clear, in the timeline of Dr. Willett's evaluations, we have not gotten to the point where we officially talk it some.
All right, so I'll skip that. So we've talked extensively about the bus contract. It's come up a lot during this budget season. And I know there was some discussion around maybe we could cut a couple of the bus routes perhaps, or some of the new routes that had been added. And Dr. Willett and I did talk about that a little bit. And I don't know if you want to say so or not, but he did say that there might be an option. I'm personally concerned about using so much of the ERF, because basically what we're doing is the same thing that the town is doing. We're using savings to pay for operating expenses, and we're just going to be in the same place next year already in the hole. So if we can not do that, I would like that. And if there is a palatable option to adjust the bus contract somewhat, I would be maybe a little bit more for that, and or if it can offset maybe some other of these things. So I don't know, Dr. Will, if you want to say, we talked a little bit about it, that maybe there could be $120,000 savings if we cut a bus route or two. And for me personally, I certainly like that above and beyond any staff cuts, and I like it above and beyond using savings for things that are just going to come up again next year. It's gonna be the same boat. So that's
you know, I don't know if you want to speak on that any further than what I said.
Yeah, Ms. saw, and I talked, just at the FFC meeting was ending, she'd asked about that, and, you know, and again, that had come up about routes. You know, if you do reduce the routes, you know, the price of each bus goes up with the fewer buses that you have, but if you did that, you know, you certainly can reduce routes. If you reduced routes by 2 routes, for instance, you could come up 120,000. The thing about it, again, the previous board, you know, set that because of the things that board was facing. There were a number of communications to the board about frustrations with you know, with transportation. And so that was, you know, to ameliorate that through the bidding process and so on. So, you know, you have options. Certainly you can talk about them. You know, your trade-off there would probably be that if anybody became frustrated over route times, you know, we would be talking about the reason for that. Would be we have fewer routes running, and you know, we made that trade-off. That's the kind of conversation you'd ultimately have. Those that were on the board in the past remember the communications they were receiving on a fairly regular basis, and I think that's what the board is attempting to address for the community.
So let me get a little clarification. And I know I wrote many of those emails. So given the limitation that our kids can only be on the bus, how much margin do we have in, and I'm not asking for specifically, but I'm just kind of off the top of your head. Are we talking about we could reduce 1 route, 2 routes, 10 routes, and while the kids will be on the bus longer, they would still be under that limit? What room do we have?
Well, you know, it's hard for me to say what will happen when we do this. You know, we'll push up probably against that hour somewhere. Tolland is, you know, expansive. There's the Stafford side of Tolland, the Ellington side of Tolland, or whatever. And so when you run the computer thing, the buses are running all over the place. So it's very difficult for me to say. I guess what I would say is we just have to accept the level of frustration on the part of people, you know, on some of those routes, where, you know, are getting right up against the edge of the hour. You know, right now, I think most people are satisfied because I'm not hearing almost anything. And last year, year before, that, you know, was a regular daily thing. State, you know, I would say, if I'm not, maybe exaggeration, daily, it was weekly, you know, and you know, that's the challenge. Is right now we have achieved what the previous board desired. There's now an extremely efficiently running one system. You have the first view where our parents know exactly where, pretty much exactly, unless there's some mixed changes sometimes in what happens, but they know where they are, and so that has achieved that end, and we would just have to accept that there may be some people that are unhappy because there's less flexibility, and that's your trade-off. I think you're pushing probably closer to them having an hour, right on the edge of it sometimes. Also, you know, you have to, when there's less to work with, if a tech run or some other run goes bad because it's a full system of things and they have to be able to cover for each other, you have less flexibility. So, you know, that can cause some logistical challenges. So somebody may recall from the previous iteration of our operations, somebody may have had a situation where their child was dropped off at, I'll just pick a time, you know, 3:30, and almost every day they expect 3:30. But then suddenly it becomes 3:50, and nobody told them it was going to be 3:50 because there was a fluctuation in something, and something happened that day with the drivers, and there's no one else, you know, to cover. Because when there's more buses, there's more options, and if something happens, they can say, you know, bus 26, you're gonna handle this part of that route, and bus 26 branches off and handles it. But if there's fewer buses, then bus 26 isn't coming from as close of a place to handle it. They have to come from a farther distance to handle it. So the pickup is 3:50 instead of 3:30. And the other frustration that we heard was, you know, I'm here every day at 3:30 and now it's 3:50. And what happened this day? And, you know, those of you who are on the previous board are very familiar with all of these narratives. So it's just taking a step into recognizing that would be part of the picture possibly here.
I just want to clarify, we added, I thought you said 4 or 5, maybe 6 buses though. And now we would be maybe talking about taking away 2 of those, so you're still to the good 4, or is that not accurate?
Well, the contract shows the buses that are added, but the thing is, it's more complicated than, so you have your standard routes and then you have transport, like your tech run transport, or they're bringing them to tech schools. And then you have your, McKinney-Vento run is what we're talking about. And then you have the other pickups that these smaller, vans do, and they do them based on need and special education pieces, but also, for other reasons. So it's about the amount of flexibility your system has to cover the anomalies every day that occur. So right now, for instance, we have all these buses going in all these directions. You have 30 about running your standard runs. That's not including the text. That's the ones that go to everybody's houses here. If you reduce that to 28 doing the standard runs, and you do have more than that, it's just that they're doing other things. They're not doing the standard runs. Then you can have a guys, we have to. All right, guys, I'm not muting you. Sometimes people accidentally unmute. So you can say reduce by 2 and have 120,000 less, but that's what I did here is instead of taking them from your routes, the daily routes, I took them from the McKinney-Vento and the special ed transports, which are special transports. So what I actually did here was I did reduce your transportation. I reduced it by your McKinney-Vento runs and your special ed runs so that it wouldn't affect your standard daily route run times. And the way I accommodated that is we're going to have, our own driver on a van we're going to purchase, run those runs and have, say, me as a backup kind of thing. And that means you can have a reduction in transportation, cut that line down by the reduction of McKinney-Vento and special ed without cutting your runs for the daily runs. And that's what we did. But you can I guess if you want to do something more, you can. It's just we are making a transportation reduction with the McKinney-Vento and special ed without your route.
That answer your question?
Yes.
So I think I was kind of thinking Maureen was, so we don't know though if we don't know how many routes will be changed by removing 2 buses.
We do. It would be you're taking those out of the system, and when you rerun it, you're running it with, let's say, instead of 30 doing the main route, you're gonna have 28 doing the main route. But instead, we took McKinney-Vento out, special ed out, and kept the 30, right?
Yeah.
So that's
So if we do an additional 2, are we still running more routes than we were last year? Are we back to where we were when we were getting all the complaints? Or are we still above that?
check. I think you're still more than you did before. It's just that keep in mind, before you were doubling up things, like there were things happening that were causing those main routes. So if something goes wrong with a certain run that's not that, they have to come out of the main routes to handle it because you don't have any more. So everything affects itself. The other thing is if you reduce the main route ones, the price goes up. And so that's the other piece is you can't do it, but it has that little bit of cost of diminishing returns because if you reduce them, the price per book per day is up.
But it's still a possibility of like 120.
It still has the possibility of another 120 that could come out if you reduce by 2 routes.
Yeah.
Yeah, you would 2 routes would get you about 120, and again, that's estimating. But yeah.
Oh my gosh. Hang on, no, no. I'm staying on bus. It's gonna take another minute.
Well, I keep going. I got on bus instead of my jogger. So let's go to important. Keep going.
Am I starting fresh?
Start with
All right, I'd rather these people get in there, transportation,
Keep going.
okay, all right.
We'll get to you guys.
All right, I, am also concerned with the $100,000 reduction from the ERF utilization. Just for the sole fact of the last conversation we had here with the last reduction, when I had asked you regarding the, I think it was 170 some thousand, how you felt that it was kind of okay, but it was kind of a shaky okay with the 178, and you said, oh, if something happens, then, we might use that up in a snap. So taking another 100,000 from that, I don't think your answer today that you would feel okay.
I mean, I don't feel okay with any of it. I was trying to find the solution that you wanted me to kind of find to, taking from what we have available.
Yeah. All right. So I would kind of segue that maybe half of that or portion, 75% of that or something we can take from this bus potential savings. And another question I have, so on the second line item, the paraeducators, are these people that we currently have on staff that we're not going to be putting into a job next year?
They are special ed paraeducators that were unfilled as of yet.
Okay. So it's potentially that's a need, but we're not gonna have the money to hire them even if there is a need.
I mean, at the end of the day, if we can't fulfill a PPT IEP obligation, we have to do whatever it takes to do that. But this is a nod to things people were talking about. Trying to be responsive to the things people were talking about, even though there may be some risk involved.
I'm not, yes, no, and I'm just trying to gather my mind.
Oh, I understand.
Your answers to these questions that I have on these things. And then, the tech aid will be about next year, I guess, or have a magic lamp somewhere. So I do have a transportation question regarding the bulletin that was put out, and I heard just briefly as I was cooking dinner during the finance committee listening session I was in earlier, that that there was funding from a grant for the transportation portion for the readiness, kindergarten readiness.
We have
There's not $1 that's coming from this budget or any of the budgetary line items for transportation.
Well, there's two things going on there. One is the contract you're in right now.
Yes.
Actually accounted for the kids that were in the burgers.
That were what?
That were the September, October, November, December, the ones that the state cut out. You had already had them in there. So there's no loss to you for transporting the Burr kids. Because the Burr, the kids that the state of Connecticut said were too young to go to school at 4 to 5.
Yes.
And that we then, offered the K readiness program for. We have grant funds for the program itself for those families that did not receive accelerated placement, as they call it now in K.
Yes.
And that, were caught off guard because they weren't counting on not having childcare for that year, maybe saved for it. So that's covered by our grants, but your transport, you were already transporting those kids at the time we created that budget. So you take no loss in transporting those kids.
But it's in that money's in the contract, right?
That contract was created before the state changed the K thing. So you actually had already accounted for that group of children. It was already there and already in the system.
Yeah.
So that's why that's a easier thing. So that's not coming out of grant because you already have it in place. Now, when we reduce it, if we reduce it by a couple of buses, that does put a strain on that because that wasn't part of the plan, but that's.
So that program that did run till 3 o'clock. So what do the kids do? Are they on a specialized bus? Do they have to wait all the way until Birch Grove ends and then?
I think it runs to 3:40 now. I think originally it was 3 and now it's 3:30.
I'm just going by what the bulletin stated.
It runs to the same time as the K.
Oh, okay, it's the regular Birch Grove time. Okay, that was I wasn't sure if we're having special runs or what.
Nope, we're definitely not having special, no, special
Just on the
run.
next bulletin, just let's make sure that's updated because I don't want other people to get confused like I just did, so. And then this, Lexia, online services for the English language arts. And I was spoken to the Hill about the reading program at Birch Grove, and I'm not in favor of reducing any more English language arts when these children are already, some of them are struggling and has been mentioned by the list of the 31 that they needed more resources, and also from, I apologize, like I know her face, I can't think of her name. The English language arts coordinator, Burns, thank you. Had mentioned that, you know, it's really a resource that's needed there that's lacking. So I have high concern. I'm really not in favor of reducing any more resources for the reading program. Other things. And then the custodial services for supplies. How are we, like, what are we reducing to finding $20,000 in savings that we weren't before?
We're gonna try to reinvest in items this year. Offset next year's budget by that money.
Oh, yeah, for money from this budget is what you're
We
saying?
would invest in supplies this year,
All right.
and that way we're trying to cut that one down.
So is that, so what, so I guess this Lexi online, is there a way to get that service back in whatever proposal we end up round table? I don't know how people feel, but I guess I'm just throwing it out there.
No, absolutely. When we get done with our question, the motion comes forward to accept as with these modifications. If the board decides that you want to put any of these back in there and take money somewhere, then just include that.
I think that's good for my questioning. Thank you.
Back on the transportation, I know in my neighborhood, there's 6 families that meet at one bus stop. Have we looked at trying to do stuff like that where instead of going to every house in a neighborhood, we create a one bus stop, so there's less stops on these routes? So consolidating routes would also consolidate stops. I'm thinking of the vineyards. I'm sure we drive all through the vineyards to pick up kids. Maybe just have one corner where 8, 10, 12 families meet in the morning to pick up kids. And, you know, then we're not extending bus routes and we're able to lose a couple bus routes.
Well, they do it with Sonar. It's a piece of software that handles what they need to do for their kids, because there's various conditions that you have to put on your transportation. Sonar is an AI program that creates the most efficient routes that, you know, apparently more efficient than a human being would be able to do on their own. So that's why whatever stops are set up that way. It also may have to do with other things. Certain roads, you can't go down them, so they might have to do it differently than one might assume they could do it. There may be conditional things that they can't change. So people can come up with their own paradigms of what they think the transport should be. But the program is supposed to be picking the most efficient transports, and it has to have certain conditions. So there must be some reason why that's happening. If somebody isn't sure about why a stop has X number of kids at it and another stop has Y, they can send me a question with respect to that stop, and I'll research why Zonar says that should be this way versus that way.
Yeah, I've gotten the response from my neighborhood, but I'm just thinking in my neighborhood, the response is because the bus can't go up the entrance and exit of the neighborhood.
So that would be a condition.
And that's fine. I get that. But in those neighborhoods where there are no conditions, so the bus goes in.
What I'm saying is that happened to be the condition for your situation.
Sure.
There may be other conditions based on a student need or a thing or something that, you know, that we would not be, that each individual would not be aware.
So would the software look at that and say, okay, all of these kids don't have conditions, they can meet at one stop? Or would the software say, no, we're gonna go in and get these kids even though there's no
You know,
condition?
it's supposed to pick the most efficient method for picking up the, kids with as few as possible, but it's the conditions that usually get in the way. Just like when we're making a master schedule, it's your singleton classes and certain things. You put in, there's your run where it schedules everything, but then when you put the conditions in, it makes constraints. So then it can't do this, it has to do this, this, and this instead. So it's kind of the same as a master scheduler. It is set up the way it is because we have conditions on it. And it's best if, just like you did, if a parent's not sure that something doesn't make intuitive sense, why are they picking them up here instead of here? Or why is there two buses running by here at the same time? Why can't that two buses just be one bus and pick up the same kids? I'm encouraging them to ask the question. We'll go research the why and then give them the answer, because there will be an answer every time. The Zonar stuff, it's in the company's best interest to run it with as little gas and, most efficiency as possible. They don't want to be stopping any more than they have to. Because every stop and go is equipment, more wear and tear, more fuel. They don't want that either. So wherever they could free that up, they would. It's the conditions that caused it to happen.
Okay, the special education transportation, reducing that by 172,000. If we find that we're not gonna be able to accomplish that, or if kids move in to the district where we have to now provide more transportation and we find that there's more need for money there, additional funds, we would still be able to, in the middle of the year, possibly reduce routes by that $120,000 and move that into there. Would that be an option for us as a backup plan?
I wouldn't. I would advise against that.
Why is that?
Because you run the entire thing in Zonar. So if you're taking something out, it would mean changing a lot of kids. Because that 72, whatever it is, now we would affect, doing that mid-year would be a pretty big deal for families, it wouldn't be the end of the world, but it definitely would be a logistical thing, that they probably wouldn't be super happy with. Because they couldn't prepare for it, it changes a lot of things for them.
Right.
I'm not saying it's, absolutely impossible to do that, it's not, but it might be better to bite the bullet, go with it if that's what you wanted to do at the beginning, so the program could run its routes with the number we're gonna try to keep. Rather than, we'd have to have it run its routes. I think that was complications.
What other options are there for a backup driver other than you? Is there me?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, everybody's doing what we can do. We pitch in around here, and there's a lot of ways that we do that. The reason I offer myself is I've done it in the past. I used to do that. I used to drive these, these mini transports. So I'm pretty sure I could get that again. The problem is, I don't know who I would give that to. Do I take a behavior intervention specialist away, or an interventionist? Who do I give? Do I give it to my business, finance person? Someone else? I mean, I think the problem is they just don't have anyone to give that to, and that's a redundancy piece. I have complete control of my schedule, but the people that I would give it to, it would hurt somebody. It would hurt a kid. And they would have to I can get services by that person, which that's not really something that we do. Principals are stretched. As you know, we're not going to have any curriculum liaisons or grade leaders or team leaders. We're going to be overwhelmed. We can't ask any of them to do it. We don't have enough secretaries that you can see every day. If you walk into a secretary, ask her if she doesn't have enough to do and she'd be wanting to drive a van. The answer would be absolutely not. Custodians were already not, we are running as lean as we can with that. Can't do that there. So, this is just, when I put it out there, I'm not putting it out there for effect. I'm telling you, this is just like right here. You don't have an IT person running this. This is me. I'm doing it. I'm willing to pitch in. There too. So, the thing is, if I can get that to work, you don't have to reduce a route. And those of you who are around, remember what this was like. I don't want, my time also, I'm willing to do that as a backup. Because the time I lost responding to transportation things I could not control was significant. Your superintendent spent a lot of time responding to complaints and issues on these things that I could not do a lot to impact, except for say, this, here's the solution. We can up the number and lower the times. And this year has been beautiful in comparison because I haven't been using a lot of time to do that. So I would happily trade, backing up somebody to help in order to not be back in a situation where I was not able to help parents when they're really frustrated about situations because I can't control the number of routes, right? So this was a way of saying we can keep the, good service that's happening right now for the community and the parents. I'm gonna have to use my time one way or the other. I'd rather back up that guy than use it trying to explain to a parent why this is working out and them not appreciating my response.
I'm concerned that the ERF being down to 78,000 as well. What are some of the things that fund gets used for during the year that we're only gonna have less than $80,000 in there?
The board has to approve the use of it. Special ed, capital, and technology are the big categories. Although there is new legislation that you can save up to 2% and you will no longer need any other approval other than your own. That's a new thing. That's coming forward. I'll report out to you, on that as we go along. Right now, you have to also check with the town. You won't have to do that anymore. So it is our backup for things like special ed, or if you have that tech piece, capital. You've used it for servers. You've used it for special ed things, transport. You've used it for that type of thing. And yeah, it's a 78 is running pretty lean on that. We have some encumbered special ed things that will be opening up at the end of this week. Will probably be somewhere, as Mr. Sheridan said, between the 20 and 100, and we're closer to 20 now than the 100. But if you did end up having, 80, you can roll that 80 over to ERF and have 150 in the ERF at the end. Our ERF is running leaner than it was. You're trying really to weather this year because you've had a lot of impacts this year. Your transport contract does go down a little bit next year too, so there's a little bit of a break there. So there are some things that might make next year slightly easier than the condition, situation you're in right now. And that's kind of what you'd be banking on, is that you have a little better of a year next year than you're having right now.
And with a comment and not a question, I wonder if parents would be okay with the trade-off of losing 2 routes, knowing that we're better than last year, but not as good as we have been this year, and be able to put that money back into that 120 back into the ERF or the Lexia to pay for that. And if that would be a good balanced trade-off that parents would be okay with.
I guess I'm really struggling with transportation. I think we beat the horse. Pretty dead. I get concerned with, making bento production. Because that's the thing that we were doing to ensure our students can stay in our district. So removing the.
To clarify, you have to do that.
That's what I'm saying, you have to do it, so reducing it ties our hands, something that we have.
I was just saying it's not to keep them in district per se.
Sorry.
I just want to be clear that what you're doing.
To ensure that students that were within our district that are now no longer.
That are homeless.
Homeless. We need to ensure that there's transportation to get them to an establishment for their education. And now we're moving funding to pay for that very service and efficiency.
Well, when we would provide an alternative, so.
Which I don't like.
But again, that's in lieu of you reducing a route. That's trying to provide an alternative that gives an option without you having to deal with the frustration of the parents and the frustration you're experiencing
I think the concern that I have with the superintendent of Tolland Public Schools being the backup driver is shouldn't that superintendent, although I appreciate your out of the box attempt or thinking to try to be creative to do this, I would rather have your time spent running that district. Versus doing that. I think it's a Band-Aid. I don't think it's setting us up for future success. I think it's not something that's going to be able to be sustainable. I do like where Bill's going with it. And I think Rini mentioned it, and you might have said it's all in different capacities. And again, because I do remember, they were brutal. Thank you, Tony. One of the biggest, but it's true. I know when Tony's kid was getting that bus or whatever, but my point is we were getting them rapidly. It has minimized tremendous. So do we offset the lesser of two evils, right? We went up this way, and it's doing great, but can we reduce by still increasing the 2020 or 2021 time period? That was the big struggle, transportation. I think that's more of a long-term sustaining plan than having you be back or doing, you know what I mean? I think I would rather have our resource running our district to find more efficiencies and other capacities, or find, to be honest, we're here to provide resources to educate our children. So that's what I would prefer our superintendent focus. So I don't like that. And I know that you've given the answer, and so I think we need to go with the path. That's my suggestion. That's kind of where I stand with it. When it comes to Lexia, I'm with Brian. I think reducing that resource, which are daily burns amongst just the educators in the classrooms, have taught Lexia and other programs, not just Lexia, Reflex in all these other programs with help with mathematics and science and language. The kids think of it as a game, and they're playing these video games and they're learning. So reducing that is reducing educational opportunities. So that's a concern for me. Extended school year, we have it so that it goes with any of our special education services as well as our intervention students. And now we're talking about reducing our intervention students that are right there on that cusp, on that tier where we can move them off of that special education or that off of that intervention, like having that continued summer education, so that what they've been working with their educators and their, Mrs. Silverberg and those folks, they continue to sustain that through the summer. And then they can go back to school and have the opportunity to graduate from that, to go back into general education. So taking $30,000 away is taking away from children's education. And I'm struggling, Dr. Lula, and I appreciate your proposal, but we have 650,000-ish that we're talking here. We're reducing 2 paraeducators. We're reducing a role that we've said that we needed, that we want to hire for. That's more people in front of our students. I want to know when we're going to start talking about non-educational excellence. Like, let's talk sports first. I know that I'm probably going to be crucified in social media after saying this, but let's be honest. Tolland Little League has a fantastic program in town. Tolland football has a fantastic program in town. Why aren't we talking about that? I want my kids to be educated. I want our kids to be educated so that they can have a future like the young adults that were in this room. Let's talk about education. I talk a lot about, because I'm talking to both sides of my mouth, because I'm a big sports fan. Tolland Soccer Club is huge in my family. Tolland Little League is huge in my family. Would I love my kids to play soccer at the high school and have an opportunity to go to college playing soccer or college playing baseball? Of course. But I also want my kids to have computer science. I want my kids to have language. I want my kids to learn how to read, how to do math. this has a lot, this 650 here, and then all the other reductions of all the teachers in the high school, it's setting our kids educationally up for this. So we're already here where we are with this new group of 650, but there's a lot of education that's being this year. And I think that the answers that are in here are providing Band-Aids and not sustainable. And we need to look at what's a sustainable game plan. That's what I'm at.
Yeah, none of this is easy. Understandably, everybody has some really excellent ideas about how to handle things. And my job is, once you decide what you want to have done here, is to execute it. I would offer this. You know, what I've tried to do here is, I will lose time anyway. If we reduce routes and I get complaints, you lose that time anyway, and I lost, which is why I'm desperate not to lose that time again. And I would be willing to do almost anything not to lose that time again. And you know what I'm talking about. We have a lot of time. The reason why, you know, we didn't do sports, things like that, it makes sense to look at those and anything when things are really tight. The objective here is to try to do things that has the least impact on the average kid, standard and any kid, right? And so a kid who, you know, may never get a chance to participate, you know, I love basketball. Not gonna ever really get to the highest levels of basketball, but in middle school I might be able to play basketball, and maybe the last time I can play basketball for a school team, right? And then when I get into high school, somebody like me, 5'6", maybe a rebounder, probably not. You know, that's what I'm saying. Is that might be the chance I have. And so the objective here is, you know, yeah, we take a hit on how we're going to handle things in operations. Yeah, we make some compromises, but I'm not wasting my time talking to parents I can't help with a bus situation that I have no control over. And I'm not taking away a chance for a kid to play baseball, maybe basketball for the last time they're ever going to do it on a school team, because, you know, they're just not that 6'2", or they're not whatever. So that, you know, we're trying here. Another rhetoric out there is we do things just to upset people so they get mad. That's not at all the case. You know, we're trying to do things here that have the least impact and that will still keep your system running in the way that your parent already is. So that's what we're doing and trying to do. But I respect the idea of trying to, you know.
Respectfully, I disagree with not discussing it. We have a wonderful rec department. We have wonderful leagues throughout our town. There's opportunities. Definitely need to provide our students with the whole student opportunity. And that's, I don't want to say extracurriculars, co-curriculars, athletics, education. Our charge is education. And I appreciate that there's a lot of, you know, we talked a lot about in our communications meeting about different after school programs that parents are wanting. And there a lot of the things we were bringing up, recognized for a decent fee. Maybe we increase pay to play. I don't, but I'm just saying, we talk a lot about cutting people in front of our students that are trying to provide for our students. Now, again, I don't want to minimize. I was a student athlete. I was an athlete in college. My children are going to be student athletes, so I don't want to take it that way. But I definitely think that we need to stop taking away educational opportunities when it comes to the arts, to the languages, to the mathematics, the sciences, the tech services, charities. We need to start looking at other things. I think it's a shame that we're taking away intervention at the extent of school year. And it's a shame we take away behaviors from all the students.
And just for clarification, it's not that we're not. You know, any ideas that come up here could certainly be investigated, could certainly be added into the direction.
And I want to reiterate, I've been biggest advocate of adding freshman baseball and tennis and all of that, because I also think that if that student who finds that art, the ceramics young man, right, that we met, the pottery young man that we found, he's flourishing when he found that skill, and his grades have gone up. So I don't want to minimize that, because I would rather have every art, every language, every sport available for our students. I just think that there needs to be a conversation at the table. And as long as I've been here, the only time it's been a conversation is when they were gonna take away freshman sports back in 2000, freshman baseball. Back in 2019. So, and again, I don't want to take away anything because man, Tolland does a fantastic job with our sports and our schools. And I'm just saying we need to have a conversation. Take a little bit from everywhere versus taking a lot from the first reason. That one.
Sure, so. Yeah, this is obviously a really difficult situation. You know, the amount that was cut is inconceivable, really. And as someone who is going to feel the effects of this next year, I can assure everyone here, online, anywhere, next year is going to be worse for me. It's going to be worse for the people in my school and the people in my district. And that's unavoidable, especially at this point. I do want to reiterate, though, how a majority of the effects that will take place with this new budget cut is going to go after more vulnerable students. It's going to go after kids with special needs, kids with learning disabilities, kids with things that they can't control with their living situations or their home lives or anything like that. And while it lets us keep our staff and keep our teachers, which I agree is the most important point at this point, I think that, especially for next year, it's something that we really need to focus on, that kids that are vulnerable are not getting the support that they need at the school. And that will take more and more people away from our school. And, you know, I know this was discussed at the original budget discussion with Sarah. A lot of people moved to this town because of the school. Now a lot of people are moving away from this town because of the school. And that's just a fact of the matter. It's not the only reason people move to this town, but young families move here for our school. And the schools are failing them. I'm not saying any of you are failing them, but not Dr. Bullet, you're doing a great job. But it's staggering to see really how just the effect that this budget season has had on the schools, on the education, on everything as a whole. And all of those effects are really going to be felt for years. You know, I'm leaving next year, but you know, I have friends who won't leave for a while. My sister's not going to leave for a while. And they're going to feel these effects. I have no doubt that we're going to have more and more budget cuts as the years go on and, you know, struggle through those budgets. But, you know, you're hitting the school at its most vulnerable point. And at this point, really, with the extra 650,000, a lot of things have to be Band-Aids. At this point, we cannot fix everything. It is literally impossible. There is no way that we can get through this budget season by making really anyone happy. Because people are going to go to the referendum, they're going to vote how they're going to vote, and no one's going to be happy with the vote. It's going to pass or it's going to fail, and we come back here and we celebrate, or we come back here and we do all this again. Not me though, because I'm out. But that's the way things are right now. So I think that there are good solutions, good proposals, but I think that nothing is going to be able to really be fixed, and that things are going to get worse, and that we have to leave here tonight knowing that, and just saying, how can we make it less worse and deal with it.
Thank you.
Thank you for being so.
Dan.
Thank you. Yeah, no, Dr. Will, obviously appreciate the mindset of lowest impact to kind of the general students in general, but and appreciate the input and putting all this together. But as far as the adjustments to the bus contract, I think we've spoke about that a fair amount. I agree with the sentiment of not overutilizing the ERF if we can. One of the questions I had based on all the conversations that we've had thus far is the reduction in the technology initiative for Chromebooks. Is there, that's a big line item. So is there any process right now, or I guess even the ability for, like, if a parent knows that their kid has a pretty dilapidated laptop, can they just say, hey, we'll buy ours, the new one, for $100 or whatever the cost is? Because I know it's relatively inexpensive with, I would imagine, the deal we have with whoever we're getting this from. Is there a process for that where some of that 210,000 could get recouped?
Well, I appreciate the question. I'm just trying to make sure that I understand it. Are we saying that we would be selling, or kind of trying to, would we be collecting money for, how would that, I apologize, Mr. Sheridan, I'm just tired
No,
right now.
it's
So how would that add revenue? Are we talking about adding revenue by doing that? Or?
Yeah, so right now, we're basically just saying we're gonna save $210,000 by not buying new computers at grades 3, 6, and 9. Is that right?
Right, that is right.
Okay. I mean, if we're saving that 210,000, like, I don't want a student to have an absolutely horrible, like, laptop. I'm just curious to see if maybe not even adding revenue. Is there a process right now that if my kid was in 3rd grade, he or she has a terrible laptop, can I get them a new one and have it be on the school's systems? And
So great, thank you for clarifying. The issue is that we have a lot of software that is proprietary that goes on those, the monitoring software, the control software, and products. So generally, it's much more complicated than it seems to have a child they can bring a laptop, but it would not connect to all the services. For instance, GoGuardian, that's something that is installed on all the school-owned machines, and that tags for a number of things. There's also the virus protection and
But maybe what he's saying is, I'm gonna give you the $100, you buy it, put all your stuff on it, and my kid gets to use it. Instead of using this old dilapidated one that is not working. I don't know, I don't want to.
right, but
That's why
we can't put this software on something we don't own. That's the challenge.
okay,
That answer-
understood. Just
Yeah,
spitballing here.
And it also sometimes is annoying for people if you've ever been in a workplace that had some software installed that was restrictive, it doesn't let you do other stuff and it's hard to get off, so it might also be a thing.
Yep, understood. All right. So as far as the ELA resource, as I understood it for Lexia within our conversation in FFC, it sounds like if this is something more of like the kids are learning, they feel as though it's a game, it's going to be terrible to kind of cut something like this. Obviously, that's not great. But you had mentioned in FFC that obviously we're still going to continue to teach the kids how to read just through another system that you would kind of reinstate. Is it fair to say that we're not just completely cutting teaching how to read here if for
not at all.
a year we don't have $25,000 in the budget? Like, because I'm just a little bit less concerned if they don't have something that's more of a nicety of a program to have that's more of a video game versus however other way that you're going to figure out how to teach these kids how to read, because I think we have options.
We do. This is a benefit if we're not cutting a lot of teachers. This has a benefit, right? Because it's an online resource that parent guardians can use with their kids, and we can use in a variety of ways. Lexia is a series of products. This is the online. Notice how it says online version. So that's really that we will have less flexibility for people who wanted to use this at home or with, and there are parents who actually love this because they can change up their reading levels and all that, and it allows connection to what they're doing in school. This would take that part away.
Got it.
So we wouldn't have that anymore, but we still have many supports for kids. That's why it's on here. It's just something that parents wouldn't have as a resource and kids would never resource, but it's not going to cripple our reading programs. No.
Okay.
Some people will miss it. They'll say, oh my gosh, last year I was able to do this. Why can't I do this now? And we'll say, well, the budget, we reduced half the budget. So, that's not offered.
All right, understood. And then the one question that I'm sure it's not an option because it would have been thought of for transportation. I've just heard comments from individuals in town that whenever they're seeing a bus go by, there's like 8 kids on there when there could be 60. Within our contract, it states probably that we have to have the size bus that we have because if randomly there was a massive spike in the number of students that that bus had to pick up, maybe a lot of those individuals are just being driven to school. But is it just by Connecticut law that the bus has to be big enough just in case everybody decided on one day their parent didn't want to drive them to school? Is that kind of the process why this seems to have some vacancies, but like would be able to renegotiate a contract to get just smaller buses to cut costs, reduce any costs anywhere?
Yeah, no, that, good question. It is that we have to make sure we have available, transportation for any child in the district who would say they needed it at any moment in time. So, parents, let's say there was a divorce or something like that, and they used to drive their child, now they can't because it's a single parent or something. And then, so it has to do with at any moment in time, then that child's back on the list, and now they call and say, my kid hasn't been on the bus. You guys go right by. I need you to pick up my kid now, and we would direct them to the spot or add that. And the thing is that can happen, but in a certain percentage of the Tolland population and families, there's going to be the kind of there's going to be a group, a number of parents whose circumstances change. And it's not just a burst situation where we'd have to be afraid of getting 200 at once. It's that there's 10 kids at it and they're all open. So the routes have to run in a way that can get to any kid's situation within a reasonable amount of time. And it has to be able to transport all kids, even if they're not taking it today. So you might see a certain number of kids in a bus, but that bus has to be ready to get many, many, many more than that at a moment's notice. Or at a day's notice, 2 days notice, something like that,
Okay. Yeah, no, those were really the only just ideas that had popped into my mind throughout the entire conversation. I knew it was probably a long shot, but trying to spitball, obviously. When it comes to just my preference, I think the conversation when we were leaning more towards the special education, transportation, reduction in something there. Obviously the trade-in's great. Trying to look at the bus route as well, the reduction in 2 buses potentially versus bring it from 4, which is obviously great, down to 2. There might be some headache there, obviously, but if that's less of an impact to the actual education of the children versus headaches of parents, I guess it'd be a win for the kids. So that's what I'd be more in support of. But kind of just where I stand right now, because I'm a little bit more opposed to utilize more of that ERF fund, especially when just chatted about it in FFC. We've got a pending $200,000 need within special education for one student. If we have 70 grand within our ERF and we blow our entire budget within month 1, we're going to need the additional funds at some point in time. And who's to say that's not going to happen 6 more times throughout the next school year? So just nervous about utilizing that ERF because following the draining of that ERF utilization is our only other option, just to go to the town and say, hey, please, or how does that process work?
Currently, your past process was going to the town and saying, hey, please, but your new process is not required.
Sorry, just didn't hear the very end there. The new process is what?
Your current process, you have to go to the, council. Did I just?
I don't think you're.
No, you're not understanding.
Okay, sorry.
Dan, you want to re-ask that? I don't think it came across clear.
Yeah, so just why I don't want to use the ERF, if we have these large expenditures coming, potentially for ad hoc special education or anything else that comes up throughout the year, technology, capital, whatever it is that we can use it for. If we drain the ERF and we have no more ERF funds, instead of just peeling money from reallocating it from other line items on our budget, is the only other option just to go back to the town and hope that they fund something, or the next special education thing that pops up that we're going to have to fund at another $120,000, or because it just makes me nervous using that much of the ERF. So any other way that we can try to keep that a little bit healthier. Obviously, I'm in favor of because we've used it a fair amount thus far this year. But a lot of Band-Aids, obviously not what anybody wants, but those are just my thoughts. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Dan. Katie?
Thanks. Sorry, I'll turn my camera on for now. I'm in a central location in my house though, so please excuse me, the people and animals. First I want to thank, can you hear me? Hold on.
We're good. We can hear you well.
Sorry. I just wanted to say first that what Audrey said was extremely well said, and I really appreciate it. It was very thoughtful and very well spoken. I don't have any of the history on the bus issue. So how many families complained about the imperfections? Because there are what, like 4,000 families in the school from what I understand, or 4,000 families in town that have kids in the school. So what percentage of families are we talking about that made complaints?
I don't know exactly what percent. I mean, I guess I can speak to the frequency of complaints was high. I'm not sure of exact, numbers with respect to the number of families affected, but I could go back and get that. It's just, the frequency was fairly high. And you don't actually, those of you who are on the board don't need me to tell you this. You know that was the case. And the board was so, determined to resolve the issue that we went ahead and we created a situation where that would no longer be the case.
Right, of course. I do think the Kenny-Vento transportation piece of your solution is really well thought out, though I do have the same concerns about potential impacts on your time. But it's really well done, and I want to thank you for that. I think that, maybe we need a transportation committee on Board of Education that fields those complaints about bus route imperfections. There are some things in life, right, on planet Earth that are unavoidable. And I think maybe having a group of people explain what the trade-offs were rather than you being solely responsible for that would allow us to maybe make some alterations to the bus contract. So moving on, the reduction in the ed tech initiative, if we reduce the number of laptop replacements, do you anticipate or envision a scenario in which some students won't be able to have computers at some point because they break? Or do you have a kind of break fix plan that's on the extreme side? Because third graders, I had one of those. They're pretty rowdy.
We have a whole method for repair right now. We do a lot of our own repairs, and we're just going to drive that. Like the analogy would be driving the car beyond the 150,000 miles. It's kind of like that's where you're at, kind of thing. More stuff can go wrong. It's going to be, again, what we've done here is we put we're accepting more risk and burden with what we're doing with the reduction. And even though I don't love the idea of certain things happening. Again, I would just put a little plug in for, I do have a very, very recent memory of what things were like. And, the reason why I'm looking and trying to find the transportation adjustments that I tried to find was we lost a lot of time with the route situation, a lot of time with people that were upset with not much I could say to them. And that takes up a lot of time. So being the backup for one person that might occasionally have a problem is way more preferable to me than having to put so much time into these issues with transport. It is a big drain. So that's, the only reason that people don't necessarily feel that right now is because a lot of you really weren't experiencing that. But you could talk to it. The chair could talk to it. This was a tremendous drain. So that's why I tried to find a way to do what we were asking, make adjustments in transport but do it in a way that is not affecting your routes directly, because you lose a lot of time and productivity by people being frustrated with those.
So, and I'm very interested in you avoiding a nervous breakdown, Dr. Willett, completely, but I also am really interested in not wagging the dog by the tail, right? Or having the squeaky wheel get too much of the grease, because that just doesn't make sense. For me, listening to all of this, the extended school year adjustment is the one that bothers me the most. And sort of echoing a little bit of what Dana said, you know, this is $30,000 that makes a really big difference in a lot of kids' lives. Some of the kids that we serve in this district aren't going on past 12th grade. And so I think it's really vitally important that we're providing them with the most quality education that suits their needs the best that we can. And I'm just not sure why we're not looking at taking $30,000 out of a $250,000 athletic stipend budget. And I was a student athlete. I was a swimmer. I swam all through college. Like, I understand the importance of it. My daughter's a dancer and the school doesn't pay for that. I had to pay for that out of my own pocket if I wanted her to do it. So I know there's a balance to be struck here. And to my mind, not touching that line at all, not only does it make it so that we end up missing pieces that our kids need in education, but I think it sends the wrong message that we're not looking at everything the school offers, because we're completely avoiding this one line. That's all I have to say. Thank you for all of your work on this, Dr. Willett. And to our chair. You did a lot for this, I know.
I'm tired, guys. You guys tired? I don't know that I'm gonna be able to do that, and I've got notes all over the place, so bear with me. First, I do just, you know, thank you, Dr. Willett. Please don't leave. The van drives. You know, thank you. It's obvious, you know, it's very important to all of us that we're trying to minimize the impacts to our students as much as possible. So thank you for working with us. You know, I feel like the board is mostly on the same page when it comes to that, or is on the same page when it comes to that. And obviously I appreciate the conversations you, Tony and myself have had, you know, as we talked through some of this, you know, as well. Okay, so I'm gonna start with a couple questions because I waited till everybody was done so that I could build off of it. Some of you answered my questions. So with the bus contract, with the bus stuff that we're beating the heck out of, isn't there also a penalty by if we do this? So I just want to make sure this 120,000, if we do that, that is, you know, with the offset, the increased bus costs, that's with the penalty, everything, and that would be the net, that it would be 120,000.
And roughly get that back. Your price per bus goes up. That's.
I understand.
That's how you
Then
get
your
it.
100 to 120,000 number, is that the number we will be able to?
That's what it looks like. Yeah, at the moment. Yeah. It's about the range. You get
Yeah.
back by 2, but reduction of 2.
And, you know, the other thing, you know, something me, and I think, you know, my particular area where I live was, you know, bus breakdowns, whatnot, especially in inclement weather. But I do know that part of our contract got us new buses as well. So I guess my question is that, and again, you don't have a crystal ball, none of us have a crystal, we're all trying to crystal ball everything right now. But, you know, given that we have the newer buses, we are still increasing routes from what I understand from what we had last year. Do we think that, you know, we still might be in a better place when it comes to also, you know, bus breakdowns and having to double up routes, because that only leaves kids on the road longer and makes bus later. But I'm hoping that we kind of already have a little bit of an offset in there.
Well, when you run buses longer, more routes, longer runs, you have more issues, but you know, they are, every time you do a new contract, you do try to get some new buses. So you have some new buses. Some of the other ones are, where in that contract, I think, for instance, you have, in 2015, you know, you still have some buses that aren't like 100 years old, but for a bus that runs that many miles and that kind of thing, the longer they run. So it's basically just increasing the probability that you'll have complications again. And if that's, you know, what you're willing to accept, then the board is willing to accept it. We'll just have to work with it. Like I said, once you make your decision, it's my job to do the best I can in every way to implement it, and I will. I always will. So, you know, I've expressed what I feel about it because I lived the alternative, and it's very time consuming. So I'm just throwing it. That's why, you know, I'm trying to find every other way to help with that. The reductions you have in there for transport are 100 and you are kind of making a transportation adjustment by doing that 172 already without reducing your routes. And that's kind of why I threw it out there, because I'm willing to do things so that you don't end up in the same situation. And I don't know if anybody here can speak to what was going on, but it was a weekly. And I just thought, I personally don't want to repeat that. I can avoid it because you lost a lot of time and a lot of productivity.
I agree with you. I also agree with the opposite point of view, which is that, you know, I also am concerned about taking from the ERF. So yeah, I know there's a huge choice for us. I did like Bill's suggestion until I thought about it later, because obviously, you know, if we changed buses in mid-school year, I'm just thinking about like the confusion it would cause for kids getting on the bus in the afternoon. Some of them are just splitting buses in different households, different daycares, but you know, so it led me to think, it makes sense, but led me to think, what if we do this? We take down the 2 routes, but then we find out next year it doesn't work. We've now set ourselves back. Would there be an opportunity for us to revise that again? Are we in danger of totally ticking this bus company off to a point? Like, I want to just make sure, like,
They'll
we
always
do this
take more. Yeah, they're a business, so if you want to expand to 10 more buses, I'm sure they'll accommodate 10 more
we
buses.
can do that. It's
But you know, they have, no, you could have, you know, if you want to next year. It's just, I don't know if you'll be in a position to add 120,000 once you take it away, but it is, you know, it's your choice. You could add them back in another year or two.
okay. Chromebooks, kind of again, like Dan's idea, but I do understand the software piece. So I guess I do have, so my son just turned in his 8th grade laptop. It's working. But I recognize what you're saying. There's a lot of wear and tear on it, and they're not, it certainly doesn't look like this to start with, even in the first place. Kind of a funky machine. What if we can't, you know, I think, I don't mean to belabor this, but I think my question is a little bit different. What if we don't have the opportunity at some point to fix it? Will we have the availability to, if we have to go out and buy 5 or 10 or 20, because we cannot fix what we have? Can we do that? Because of course my concern is that I want to do everything we can here. So I like this list based on that. Obviously I don't like the list based on everything we all feel. But I also don't want to take a step backwards or many steps backwards from something that, you know, I believe strongly in. You know, as you mentioned, there was PTO donation. You know, we were already, you know, behind the 8 ball when it came to one-to-one tech. You know, I want our students to have what other districts have. I want them to have that, you know, computer knowledge. And we saw in the pandemic what happened when we weren't as prepared as everyone else. So I don't want to take that step backwards. So I just want to make sure that if we do this, we have opportunities to keep it going.
We will see how it goes. You know, I'm always looking for every opportunity I can to acquire funds for the district. So, an example would be you have a social worker you don't pay for 3 years because the grant for a social worker, we got it. You know, I do the ASG grant, ASSG, it's this academic and social support grant. I might be able to get some money out of that. There's no way I can get enough money to support the entire thing, but maybe if we had, you know, 20 failing and 20 completely just died and now these kids are without it, I might be able to come up with 20 out of say the ASSG grant or something. But I would be putting my finger in the dam for a year. You know, seeing how far we can go with this. I honestly don't know what will happen. I can tell you that a Chromebook after 3 years of use from an average third grader to fifth grader is not in great condition. On a day-to-day basis, they may have survived the ordeal, but then they will eventually poop out. So, you know, our replacement process has worked well. And the criticism in the past of initiatives was that one of the things school districts generally did was they would start this initiative and then they would fail to replace the equipment. And then 6 years in, everything is failing. And then there's a massive capital expenditure to try to put it back. So this was actually a very responsible plan at its outset, saying, you know, in order to keep this going, it's going to require this kind of replacement, timeline. So we're going to see, it's an experiment. I don't know. I would obviously do my best, as I always will, to try to find ways to stick the finger in the dam for the year until we can get that, back in the subsequent year. If it doesn't ever go back, then what will end up happening is eventually these will die in a road and, we'll just have to put back to the old lab paradigm. And we just go back to using certain systems in labs. So that's a big transition these days because that's not how most people are doing education now. It's mostly the books and everything. It's becoming that this is everything to most students. And it wasn't when I was a kid. It was a lab, right? But the lab thing has gone away, really. It's almost like a textbook. And in another 20 years, you know how a school system provides the textbook? This is the textbook. Yeah.
Well, and I think last year we talked, I think last year, maybe the year before, we did do a reduction of textbooks and materials because so many of our materials
You're
are
doing it here too.
online.
You're making, this budget is making a lot of reductions. You're reducing textbooks, many staff. There's a lot of things in here that I don't know if people realize. That's
Right.
one of them too is, the tech there.
My point with that is that if we then go backwards with the Chromebook now, shifted so much of our materials to be online material, we would have to do another shift, which is also costly. So that would not be my inclination to do that. Lexia. So, forgive me, but my children don't use Lexia anymore. I don't believe. What grades are utilizing Lexia right now?
Mostly the
So K to 5.
K to 5, maybe a little bit, mostly kids.
And, I know, like, are there other, so for instance, like my son used a lot of Khan Academy, which wasn't a school resource, right? I mean, that's just a free online resource.
So probably got through his Chromebook.
Yeah, of course. They got their Chromebook.
Right. So yeah, it is, yes.
Are there other programs that would be like Lexia, that would be something that students could use that was like Khan Academy, so free to us, but they would still get those kinds of exercises and reading those games, the enjoyment that they're having from Lexia online service.
Well, the reason Alexia is on there is, again, it's kind of a resource for families, and the consideration is we'd rather have staff than that resource per se, right? The answer to your question is no, though, because Lexia is not going to make its proprietary for-profit product available to everyone ubiquitously online, because then they wouldn't have a company to sell their product, right? So most of the things you find online, the old idea of you can find a resource online, only works for very generalized resources, and then there's eventually a paywall. So the straight answer to that is that no, not really, but it's still better to lose Lexia online for families that might be using it than to lose the reading person or whatever that would be helping their child, right? So it's a great resource for families that don't have, especially for families that don't have a lot of resources, because if you grow up in the Willett household with 3 children, educators, and a librarian, you get a ton of books, books and everything, right? But not every family is as fortunate in that way. So the families that benefit sometimes are the ones that don't have the librarian and the educator as the, parents. And there may be single families and issues that come up in life that cause issues. Lexia has always been something then that, a person has a resource that has an access to a lot of resources. And that helps sometimes the most needy. But again, when we're looking at a difficult situation like this, That's the reason it's not cut first, because it does help families, but it's better to have staff than have Lexia. The short answer though is no, products like this, the reason why you pay for them is because there is no alternative that's as good, on the internet by itself.
Okay, and I guess I just have some comments. So, going back to the list, here's the reality, I don't like any of it. I don't like any of it, I don't like anything that we've done so far. I don't like this increase for you. I do not like the extended school year and not being able to reach more students. I don't love the ARF utilization, the parent educators makes me concerned. I think, the reality is that none of us like any of the cuts that we've had to do thus far. Having said that, the reality is we didn't do this. The people in this room didn't do it. We were all mostly in agreement that we needed to put so much into our schools this year. I think your first budget showed that of the percent increase you were asking, 6.5% was in increases. Salaries, it was transportation, it was insurance, etc. We tried to do everything we could to maintain everything we could. We would need $3.3 million right now to keep a level services from what we had last year. Now, that doesn't mean that the town is cutting the education budget, meaning they're not cutting from what our amount was last year. But when you cannot cover an increase, you therefore have to make cuts. You can't go to the grocery store and say the milk cost $1 less last year, so I'll just take a quarter of it. You either buy the milk at the increase or you don't buy the milk at all. So that's the position we're in, and now we're having to take things away because we weren't able to get the increase that we needed. So my point in saying that in this room, not necessarily for the people there, is that we're 7 people. Or no, we're not. I said I was tired when I started this. And I don't have all my thoughts written down, which isn't great. Okay, but we're 9 people, and
Person too.
so to back up, I think we all understand that education is not a perfect right. It's a right. It's a right. Our students have a right to a public education. That's what public education is, right? And our job is to service those needs as best we can, but every student comes in with individual needs, right? So our job, just in general, with all the funding in the world, is to do the best we can. So now here we are, 9 people, and we have different experiences. We have different backgrounds. We've had different things with our kids, and we're trying to figure out what to do with all of these cuts that none of us like for different reasons. That doesn't really help us, but I just wanted to point that out. We're trying to compromise here, and we're trying to work it out, and we're trying to bring all of our information to the table. I don't know if we're gonna get there, but that's the Sophie's choice we've been in. As Dr. Willett said, I do want to talk about, what we've lost a little bit, just because I think some of it's getting lost. The teen lead curriculum liaison piece is huge. That was what, $260,000, Walt? $271,000. I think to a lot of people that just seems like, oh, what is that, right? We know we have administrators, we know we have teachers, we know we have parents. What are the teen leads and the curriculum liaisons? So briefly, more brief than I did last time. Team leads are middle managers. A lot of us have worked for corporations and businesses. Do all of the employees report up to a vice president or president? They don't. Everybody's now going to be going up at every grade level, special ed, again, you name it, to an administrator. How do our administrators work effectively with 7 to 8 teachers per grade and get all of that information? Students' needs get lost. Between the admins and the teams, they meet weekly, bi-weekly. They provide communication from the teams to the administrators of how the curriculum is aligning and pacing. They organize parent conferences, they organize team events, they order supplies, they set testing schedules, they prepare materials, they prepare schedules for grade-wide assessments. They're the point person admin can turn to when they have questions or issues. They bring programs together, they ensure everyone is on the same page, they foster and streamline communication, they bring new teachers up to speed, often on their own time. They create communities in our community, they take recess duties, CAF duty, bus duty. The special ed team leads organize PPTs and 504s. They organize those testing materials, they coordinate para schedules, and it goes on and on. It's a heavy load that's now going to be put on the backs of our administrators. Last year, we eliminated the child development program. You know, there's a lot of rhetoric that this is just, you know, a daycare with some baby dolls. It wasn't just that. It was a theory class. It had 4 classes, I think. We have, from what I understand, in the high school, a lot of students trying to get into the electives right now, and a lot of students being turned away. I'm not going to throw numbers up there, but I've heard large numbers, but that would be based on. We lost a math coach for TMS and THS. We reduced a custodial position. Now, lower the custodial line. I think I said we lost a business teacher. So we also last year talked about losing the team leads and curriculum liaisons. We lost them this year. We talked about losing librarians last year. This year we got the high school librarian. So we're putting our money where our mouth is in an unfortunate way, but we're certainly making cuts. Having said that, I feel like I'm walking a tightrope here. You know, as Dana pointed out, I think I understand her point. Losing a lot more to lose. We don't want to keep losing things. We don't want to go into other programs. We don't want to take more things away from our kids. You mentioned things like sports. Pros to that argument, there's cons to that argument. Children's school obviously helps with getting into colleges for many students, et cetera. So I think that whatever we decide tonight, I think that a loss that we don't consider a loss is what we were not able to add, right? The 31 positions, like Brian said earlier. Last night in the town council meeting, someone brought up mental health, and we heard a lot of concerns about that in our rounds with the administrators. We heard that first group intervention rates are up over 30% over the other schools. We heard that the middle school is dealing with the most self-harm cases they've had. Every school is asking for social workers, more guidance counselors. TIS is, feeling like they're not getting to another tier of students in need, and they wanted to put in a youth coach. They weren't able to do that. Those not being able to do those things are losses as well. What we have, though, is and everyone likes to point out how much I bring up staff. I bring up staff because they are the ones that are with our children every day. And what we have is an amazing staff that is willing to take these things on. And as Tony said, provide us, I'm not going to get obviously your words right, but still provide our students an excellent education and do whatever they can. And I think what Dr. Willett is showing us, he's offering to drive vans. He's, again, the team leads, we have staff in place that are willing to go the extra mile so that we don't have to take more away from our kids. We don't to impact them more. We're alleviating as many staff cuts as we can, although we went over, we are losing a lot of positions. We're losing a position in, I think, all of our core areas, except math, which we lost a position there last year in business, in the high school. Our staff is willing to break their backs to make sure that our kids excel, to make sure that as many kids as possible are being reached on a daily basis. The more we do this, we're going to keep having to take things away. And we're going to keep our staff in limbo and not know whether or not they have jobs and what their burden is going to be next year. So as we wrap up this conversation, I could have saved this for my points of interest, but that didn't make sense either because we're talking about budget. You know, I just want to point out that I am very, very grateful, as I think everybody in this room is, that we have the staff that we have that are going to make this work for our kids. And we all need to figure out the best way to support them as they make this work for our. I didn't necessarily intend to go that far, but that's what happens when my notes are all over the place.
So just my quick thoughts, and I will be brief. You know, as many people have pointed out, you know, I lived through the bus challenges, you know, with the last board, and you know, like Dana and Bill said, I was one of the more vocal when my child didn't get off that bus and over and over. I know we talked about it, not only the amount of time that Dr. Willett and the transportation coordinator that we've got had to do, but we talked about it in the policy meetings. We talked about it in the FFC meetings. We talked about it in the communication meetings. The buses and that time was the big thing that went over, you know, but that being said, we are in a tough financial position right now. Nothing comes for free. As Audrey pointed out, effects are already being felt. And despite our best efforts, we have to meet the budget application that's coming. So we're going to have to do some tough things. From a personal perspective, I am willing to have a bit more time for my child on that bus if it means that we save a little bit. As long as it's not as bad as it was. I recognize I am willing, and Dr. Willett, I don't mean this harsh, but I am willing for you to be a backup driver if that saves us extra money. I think when we look through the list of reductions to meet the number, there is absolutely nobody that isn't touched. You know, our superintendent could be a backup driver. Our principals are going to be doing some of the stuff that the team leads are doing. Our teachers are going to have to adjust to not having some of the reading resources and the things that are there. And while all of that is terrible, and I hate the fact that we're putting that additional burden on them, the only other option is to cut more of them. You know, I think, I don't remember who said it earlier, but it stuck with me and it hurts my soul. But it said, we are just trying to weather this year. You know, we've said that before, but I think nowhere is it more true. You know, this board is going to have to spend a lot more time this next year trying to figure out how we don't run into the same situation next budget. Everybody is going to have to work harder because of what the number is. Regardless of, you know, how we feel, how we got to the number, this is what the number is, and these are the options that we have. So, you know, I go back to what Mr. Deneen said in that in our walkthrough where he talked about each kid has that one thing that brings them to school. And that the administrators, the staff are doing everything they can in their miraculous abilities to grab that one thing and then teach them everything else while they're there. And, you know, I think that the recommendations that we're putting forward are a pretty good way of trying to minimize our staff reductions and minimize cutting that one thing. I don't think there's any way that we exit this without feeling pain. I think the best we can do is figure out how to minimize that pain and then make that promise to each and every one of them. You know, that classroom and the staff, that we won't stop. That we'll keep it going and we'll make it better. So, that being said, like I said, to be concise, I personally approve of the recommendations. I am a fan of looking into a 1 or 2 route reduction to minimize the effects of the using the ERF don't like burning through that. But now, that being said, I'm going to go start the second round. I would ask people, please say what you want to, ask your question, but in the interest of time, be brief.
You're approaching 10 too, just keep in mind that.
I'm still on the flow.
You might need to-
You've done it now. All right, entertain a motion to extend that. Do I have a second? I'll second it. Other than general unhappiness, do we have discussion? Okay, Jaden. Rini.
Aye.
Brian. Bill. Aye. Jen. Dana.
Aye.
Katie.
Aye.
Dan.
Aye.
He passes. All right, the second round, Jaden.
If you had the view Rini has right now, I mean, I've got plenty. I know, so I've got plenty. But Tony, I think you just made a very fair point that I think summarizes a lot of my questions and a lot of my thoughts into that, which is, again, minimizing impact while keeping that maybe one reason for many of those kids, many of the students. The reason, and this goes to Jen's point of trusting our staff to do as excellent a job as they've been doing and are currently doing. They're most of the time working in education or childcare, whatever it is that involves children. The kids are their why typically. So I think we're being consistent there in that regard. Man, I've got a lot of questions. I'm not gonna lie to you. A lot of them were answered. Some of them weren't. Going back to the computer tech initiative, 210 would be coming out this year. Does that mean next year we're going to be basically in another hole? Would there be more sets of computers to be replaced next year, thus sort of resulting in another hole year after year?
You're gonna push that replacements off the year. But with the about 100%. 5, 7, 8, something like that.
And it's projected right now, the numbers that are projected to go into the ERF, we will not be able to cover that next year. And so the constant use of that ERF. But again, as somebody who works with children and cherishes the work I do with kids, I fully understand the impact that people have on those kids, and I don't take it lightly. And so I as much as I really despise using the ERF, glad we were able to keep a few positions as well as keep the buses as efficient as can be given the circumstances we're under right now. That may change, but where we are right now, I feel good. I appreciated Bill's questions about the stops. I was sort of curious about that myself, but that was answered. I'll end with this. A lot of it was, I'm not gonna take up everybody's time. I think you get it on the, which is again, keep the why in the schools, whether it's the sports, whether it's the programs, whether it's the co-curriculars, the DECAs. That was my why, by the way, the kids who were sitting in this room just 2 hours ago, and the amazing woman that Mrs. Bridget, that was my why when I was in high school. So to see that there, and to know that, again, we would potentially remove that. I mean, if you look across the state right now, and across the country, getting kids in, and I'm sure you could attest to this in terms of our attendance records and after COVID, how I don't know what the word is, but negatively impact attendance has been. Again, sports are that why. Co-curriculars are that why. That specific staff member in the building is that why. And so I am just not comfortable removing any more whys from the building. And so that's why I'm telling you, your point just now, it fit where my mind is right now. So again, I've got a bunch of questions just about, I think, post this meeting sort of and whatnot. And so I'll reach out to the appropriate folks to answer those questions. But
That's what I've got.
I'll try to be very brief. This is a yes or no. Lexia, can people sign up for that on their own? Like, can you get a paid subscription?
Sure.
So they could do that
They could.
absent us. Okay, that's one. Number two is the $30,000 for the extended year. In your opinion, does spending the $30,000 now save us bunch down the road in terms of maybe IEPs and special services? If we invest the 30 now versus taking it out?
That's why we do it, yeah, is to try to avoid offset issues, but there's no guarantee that would occur, but that's what we're trying to do.
Okay, so it's iffy.
That's the
But
objective.
probable, but not. And I think the last thing I wanted to ask, although I don't know if it will influence my ultimate decision, if you had to pick, and I guess you kind of have, you had to pick between leaving the ERF only with the 80,000 and keeping the full complement of buses versus just cutting one or two and trying it so that we can keep some money in the ERF. You know, time it is.
That is really hard as a yes, no.
Well, I know, because I can tell, I keep saying, I really don't want to do this. So
I, you know, I
trying
think
to be sensitive.
you know that I do not, you noticed that I don't like the reduction, bringing the ERF down too low. So you know that because you've observed me say that. I will express, I do have some desperation over, the way it was with transport because, that was very costly.
Right.
So, I'm hoping, despite how tight we are this year, that we would end somewhere in the 20 to 100 zone, and that there would be money to move into ERF at the end, so you'd be at 150 or 100 or something.
But if it's only 20, yeah, we're at 100. So
Right,
it's
it
not
could be, but
really.
that's why I was willing to make the trip, because, I do remember how costly the way it used to be was in time, and that's why I'm not joking about the backing up the driver, because I don't think that would happen to me every day. I think that would happen once in a while, and I would move things around to help, right? Whereas multiple times a week, very frustrated people were expressing themselves with a lot of energy, and we were trying to work out how to help them, and really couldn't. So that's what I balance it against is, I guess, as you said, astutely, you saw, I have already kind of laid out what I would think is the better way to go. But you've also heard me say that I'm concerned about ERF. So everything you're saying makes sense to me, but asking me directly, that's why I laid it out that way. Because those were.
But I mean, that's why we're saying a stepping stone in terms of we're not going to go back to the old. We're going to just try to make another adjustment.
My job is to execute the will of the board.
Okay, all right, that's it. I'm done.
Brian.
So, I guess after listening to everybody and certain things with certain needs of certain types of people and I guess, I don't know, I'll just go around here. I will say what Dana had said. I would like to add in this extended school year. I think whether it's a dollar savings or a wash or whatnot, I think it helps these students. Not everything I don't think should come out to being whether we're saving, $1,800 versus these students' education or helping them along through the summer for the couple months is worth the dollar aspect of my view. And that's why I still even go back to the Lexia, like Walt was saying earlier, that it doesn't necessarily mean that, sure, I could probably go buy the Lexia online myself, but he's talking about possibly potential people that need it, whether they're single families or people don't have librarians in the home or different things, or even money to buy the program or even know that it's even available for people to obtain outside. So I would like to ask 2 routes for 125,000, add those 2 back in for 55,000, and then we have 70,000 that we put back in the yard.
be back, extended school year, and then adding back.
And Lexi, the extended school year, those two come out to 55. If you said 2 routes for 125, that would put 70 back to the ERF organization.
So it was 100 to 120.
Oh, I thought you said 120 to 125.
It's about the 100 to 120.
Oh, okay, all right.
So the balance back in the ERF.
Yeah.
Or offset the ERF usage.
Yeah, I mean, once I get your commitment, if you give me a few minutes, I'll work all the numbers and then report it back out to you. I'm getting just one of the options.
Yeah, I'm not even going around, but I just wanted to throw that out there. That's my thought process.
Go around and then we'll.
No, Brian, you and I were on the same page. I was gonna say the same thing. You know, I'm in favor of the, reduction of 2 bus routes and putting the money back into the extended school year in Lexia. And, putting the balance back into, offset the ERF usage.
Yeah. Dan?
Sorry, I'm going back to my notes here. I would say dinner to bell and try is the best way to say it. I think what I'd like to make sure that I communicate is, and I think Jen expressed it very well, and then Tony expressed it in a different way. Appreciate your communications the overview specifically. Because none of us, Jen, what did you say? None of us thought, but this is where we're. I think every single one of us on a variety of levels wanted way more for our students, way more for our staff. It comes with tough conversations and a conversation that I literally could sit to my stomach just when I heard the number hitting it. So, and I'm like, what are we going to do? And I don't want to anyways, we were all in a different place where we all wanted a lot more. Our initial that we proposed to the town council when we sat in that line with a lot more resources for our educators, our superintendent, and our students. That included co-curriculars, athletics, programs, step up, all those different things, and core foundations for our students. Right? Unfortunately, this is where we are. Do I want to be the bad person that mentions the big ugly word? No, I don't. But I also don't want to be the bad person taking away Lexi. I don't want to be the bad person taking away computer science. I don't want to be the bad person taking away an educator. It's just a bad situation that we're in as the board together. We all look at things very differently. I've been a huge advocate about that. I've been a huge advocate of educating their students. I've always wanted more. Like that's Dana's thing. Like not to make a joke, right? Dana's always yes, Tony was always no. It's just like that was the truth, right? I always wanted to add more, give more to our students. And today is the day where we probably, other than in COVID, we've had probably one of the most difficult conversations, or these past few months, the most difficult conversations that I've had as a Board of Ed member. It makes me sick what we're doing to our school system. And I know that, yes, it's more money, dollar-wise, than maybe last year or the year before, but we're not keeping up with inflation, which doesn't really make it the same amount. I was talking to somebody I was talking to somebody last night about it. We were joking about the fact that when I started driving, I was going to age myself. At the lowest point, I was paid 81 cents a gallon. Would love to pay 81 cents a gallon. We just drive 15 minutes to get the 81 cents a gallon to the little town, if you will. It was 81 cents a gallon. I would love to pay 81 cents a gallon. I would love to pay the milk that you were talking about. But we're starving our school when it comes to different things. And we're starving our town for a lot. It's things that we're at this point. So do I want to cut anything? Do I want to have any of these conversations? No, but we have to. And it makes me sick thinking about it. So I appreciate everybody listening. Maybe we agree, maybe we disagree. And I don't want to bring up any of this. I want our school back. I want that child care back. I want all that. And I'm sorry that we're here. But where I am, because we have to make that decision, I will say ditto to Bill and Button. because I definitely think, and Reedy said similar to what I was saying earlier, will this save us from moving kids to a different tier? Right? 30,000 now, like this dollar spent today is gonna save us dollars. I'd be willing to take more of Tony's emails about the bus situation and other people's. It's gonna stink. I am also a corner street where all the kids go to the corner. The street after me, they drive the whole cul-de-sac. The kids could probably come with it, right? That would be safe. I don't know how that looks. I don't know what the legal ramifications are if someone's 5 years old. I don't know how that looks. How far they're allowed to be walked. I know I walked a mile tonight. So. When I was a kid, but I also didn't live in Tolland. So I just think that there's other opportunity. And yet, you know what, Dr. Willett, I'm angry about the fact that you're willing to drive the thing, but that's something that we need to do. And I'm just sat there stewing and listening to what everybody's saying. And no one's going to be happy with this, but somewhere something's got to give. But I feel like the 30,000 I don't want to give. I feel like I don't want to erode our ERF. And I feel like the transportation might be a good option. And then hopefully we can really get back in focus with the town going forward in a sustainable 5-year plan. So we can positively fund the town, fund our students, our staff, and every other department instead of this horrible divisive.
Thank you. Dan.
Yeah, I'll be brief. I think air conditioning got shut off in my office at like 7:30 or 8. So as far as options, I definitely think I'd be in support of Brian's proposal. Cutting, I believe it was cutting the 2 routes, and if it's absolutely miserable, I think we can just come back to the table, reassess. The bus company is going to take our money. I think if we go back to the drawing board. So that's what I'd be in support of at this point. That's it.
Thank you, Katie.
Oops, sorry, I'll just come back on really quickly. I agree with Dan. The buses seem to be the most palatable way to avoid additional cuts to ERF and to maintain extended school year and supports for some of our most vulnerable students. I just would reiterate what I said about the athletic stipend line. I don't want to pretend that we're not picking between which students matter most when we talk about those things. It drives me a little bit crazy. All of our students are important, and that means that, if we get a bigger headache around buses, then that's what we get in order to make sure that all of the kids in our school system are getting their needs met educationally for their education.
All right, thank you, Katie. All right, in the interest of time, I'm going to deviate from our normal process. And rather than request to move this to board action, I'm going to entertain a motion now. Are you ready?
Motion that we accept the proposed budget with the addition of 2 route reductions to offset the extended school year, the Lexia online services, with the balance being put back into the ERF utilization.
Yeah, motion to accept the proposed budget with the addition of the 2 route reductions, the offset of the extended school year, meaning basically taking that 30 out, right?
Right.
Right, and then the last part was Lexia, adding back the Lexia.
Adding back Lexia, and then taking the balance in the savings of the 2 route reduction to lessen the ERF utilization.
Yes.
I'm gonna work on that while you guys.
All right, now I heard a second. I got a second. Right. You said second.
Yes, that's it.
Okay. Want to make sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Discussion. Jane? No, thank you. Okay. All right, let's vote. Jane? Green,
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
Jen,
Aye.
Dana.
Aye.
Katie,
Aye.
Dan.
Aye.
Will that motion pass? All right, moving on, keeping in mind the time, and Dr. Willett, if we should do the monthly financial report as briefly as possible, while still remaining true to policy.
Sure, I just, a reduction to the, adding back ESY and adding Lexia. There's 35 to find, I can find that. There's about 35 to find, to reduce.
I thought we were changing the reduction to ERF from 100.
We did, and then we added back 120.
So whatever the net is,
120.
so you don't have to find anything. You shouldn't have to find
Yeah,
anything.
there's no money. The excess. Yeah, $120,000. We're putting the 30 back in, we're putting the 25 back in.
So it's a reduction of using the 121. I'm just trying to,
So it should be
extended
65.
the adding back the 30 for the ESY, adding back the 25 for the Lexia and cutting 2 bus routes, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
145, 175 coming back in.
Should be about 65 going back into ERF.
I'm just, anyway,
We're
we
only
can keep
taking
going.
out 35.
Right,
That's not-
true, yeah.
That's true, because we're still.
So what I'm missing, why,
Yeah.
where the confusion is.
I'm just putting it in the spreadsheet and trying to make sure I can cover all the bases with that. But I think, you know, I'll work it out. I just didn't have any time to work it out. I'm just trying to make sure it all balances out.
Maybe we can-
But there is, you know, in terms of all of this, in terms of.
So let's continue on, and then we'll come back.
That's fellowship then.
These will go quick. So let's do the.
Well, he's on a financial report. How's he gonna do 2 things at one time?
Well,
So-
asking him to do it.
All right, so financial report, so as you know, the Board of Ed, has in the first meeting of the month, a financial report. This covers the previous month, so this would be the financial report for May. And I believe, without looking at it, we were at about 21,000, am I right? Just to multitask here, yeah, the,
Yes.
is 21,009 or 0.05% of the budget. I can go over some of the budget highlights, but I don't know how much detail you want me to go into here, given the time. Some of the big stuff, yeah, I'm sure there may be some questions. We did talk about things in FFC tonight, but let me just. So some of the fluctuations for the month, you're looking at substitute, stipends were also a big fluctuation. And stipends are over. We talked a little bit about that. Health insurance. And these are the same things we've been talking about for a couple of months. The professional ed services is over budget. We talked about that before, and why that is. We're just kind of keeping it short. Legal fees are up, and they are there because we had a number of actions we had to take this year, things that we had to grapple with this year. Tech services is over. That's about 66,000 over, and transportation, is over by about 315, but it's not over as much. Advertising, tuition, as you expect, tuition is a bit over. And so, as we had talked about in the past, the things that were over are balancing out with some of the other things that we're under budget for the year. So vacancies, their sublines are going up though, and getting pretty big to offset that, because it's not that there's no one in the room, it's that we have to cover up with an LCS or a sub. So that's you're going to see that go up as well. And so anyway, we're ending at 21,009 for May, 0.05% of the budget, and we're hoping to end the year somewhere in that. June will be your last financial report.
Any questions about financial. All right, Dr. Willett, fellowship.
Okay, so, Kristen Grabowski is a teacher at TIS. She has been offered the opportunity for a fellowship. That fellowship would provide, her an opportunity to do a year of training with the Connecticut Education Association. And that training is to become a UNICEF representative, meaning a state rep for CEA. The CEA, as part of the fellowship, offers to pay the salary of the person to the district, so the district would not have a cost negative situation. So essentially, this staff member is asking for a paid leave of absence, but the CEA would pay for the salary. And so we would bring in a person to do her job for a year, pay them, and the CEA would be covering the salary while this individual is under fellowship. So it's a unique opportunity for her. She has requested that paid leave, CEA would cover the cost of it. And that's the short of it.
This organization is gonna pay for her salary while she's away, and the temp is gonna be filling her role.
Well, the temp, we're not gonna lose, so if she asked for paid leave and no one was paying the salary, then we're eating the salary plus the LTS. In this way, we're not gonna use that, we're not gonna lose any money. We break even.
Yeah,
Because,
that's what I'm asking, yeah.
yeah, we break even.
They're paying for her, still have to pay for somebody else for.
We do, and so that's why they're giving us the money and then.
So they're paying for both?
No,
I'm confused.
they're paying for one.
Yeah.
We're paying for the new one coming in to fill in.
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
Just paying for one.
We would have been paying for it.
Yeah, no, I understand, but yeah, we're still paying, I just want.
If it was a typical paid leave, we pay her and the LTS now, because they're gonna cover the cost really of her.
Yes,
Then we don't have an additional cost to do this.
Yeah.
Now that's what I did for the motion is I put it in contingent upon the acceptance of an MOA, MOU. Because we want to make sure that there's a contract in place that codifies this arrangement. So it's not just, a nod, it's that this is, if you're approving this, you're approving it on the contingency that we sign an acceptable MOU, MOA to ensure that that arrangement is built.
And which is why it has to come before a board action, because it doesn't.
Savings offset on her salary compared to a long-term sub.
It probably won't play out that way, because when we get to the end of the MOA, I'm sure they're gonna pay. I don't think we're gonna get anything. And, we're probably not doing an LTS the whole year. We do a 1-year contract, for our teacher who's got.
For sure, that won't be though the same amount as a tenured teacher.
Probably won't.
Any other questions? All right, again, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the extended leave of absence request made by Kristen Grabowski pending mutual acceptance of an MOA, MOU signed by the superintendent, settling the terms of the reimbursement of her salary to the Tolland Public School District or Board of Education.
Second.
Any comments, discussion? All right, Jaden.
Aye.
Rini.
Aye.
Brian.
Aye.
Bill.
Aye.
Jen.
Aye.
Dana.
Aye.
Katie.
Aye.
Dan.
Aye.
Dr. Willett. All right, again, brevity, obsolete surplus equipment,
2 p.m.
2 p.m.
Moving to the town. The motion is to declare them obsolete and turn them over.
We add it to the truck sale.
Any questions on the PM? All right, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to declare the 2 pianos at Tolland Intermediate School as obsolete and turn it over to the town in accordance with the Board of Education Policy 34.
Second.
Any discussion? Jaden. Aye. Rini.
Aye.
And Bill. Aye. Aye, Jen.
Aye.
Dana.
Aye.
Katie.
Aye.
Dan.
Aye.
All right, Dr. Willett, I'm going to move for the policy on homeless children to agenda planning. We'll look at that. So if you could then go to L5, the possible cancellation of July 10th BOE meeting. Screw this up.
Make a motion that we cancel the July 10 meeting.
Second.
You said we would go.
Discussion? Oh, yeah, no, okay. You thought for some good eye that back. It was a legal motion. No discussion. All right. Jaden.
I don't know, so I'm gonna abstain.
Randy.
Aye.
Brian. Aye. Bill.
Aye.
I'm a nay. Jen.
Aye.
Dana.
Aye.
Katie.
Aye.
Dan.
Aye.
Right. Really? You got 7 ayes, 1 abstention and 1 nay. All right, moving on, M1 policy, the second read for policy and regulation 5800, admission to public schools at or before age 5. And then we have the first read there.
Right, so you're familiar with it. It's basically the codification of what already exists. It's required by law. The policy explains what we have to do. And essentially it puts us in alignment with the state in terms of, the child. Child needs to be 5 by September 2nd, and if there isn't a, September 1st, if there is not a, if the parent wants to, appeal that, they can. The district has to have a protocol, for assessing the child's readiness. It does, and it was explained in the last board meeting. So I won't go into all of it again, but there's a metric that involves standardized measures. If a child does or is successful on those standardized measures, they are accepted for what the state considers accelerated placement in kindergarten at an earlier age, just as if they were getting it for another grade. And if they are not, then they have another year to wait before they can get in. And this year we have the kindergarten readiness program to cover as families adjust that change. So the families, 2 years from now won't be in the same spot, but they know it's coming. So the policy just needs to get approved to codify everything and make it in alignment with the law.
So let me open the floor. Are there any questions for Dr. Willett or policy chair?
So I guess I have one question.
Go ahead.
No. So I had brought it up previous. I guess my reservation, and I don't know if this is part of the law, not part of the law or not, you can probably help me clarify that. But the after testing determination for students, so is that determination made for acceptance or just by you solely? Or is there a panel of several people who determine whether a child will be able to get into the school system or be rejected into the school system?
They have to score above a metric in order to show readiness. And so if they don't, that's done by a team of people, reading specialists, math specialists, intervention staff. They give that assessment, or they get a series of assessments. One of them is the DIBELS. Another one is, is an assessment checking for whether they would end up in intervention. So they give these assessments and then the student gets a score at the end, and if the score is below a certain threshold, then they are not allowed accelerated placement. So I don't we don't make a decision as sort of as a committee, like say, should both get it or not. The child files for, parents file for an appeal, and the child either demonstrates readiness by passing those tests or doesn't.
I just had thought, and I read it over earlier today with the midst of everything going on in my life. I thought I had somewhere in the first read that there was something with the determination that you were the final person or something, making the judgment call on it and not necessarily just the testing system.
Yeah, my designees execute it's me or my designees, and that's how it's listed on most all other policies when it has to do with decision makers. So, for instance, how this works is when they do provide, when they do provide the information to the family about the results, the family can still meet with me and talk to me. I'm the one that they talk to, but I'll go over the results with them. And, that's the last stop, would be meeting with me. But the people making the determination on the assessments would be people trained as read specialists.
I think I know what you're talking about, Brian. Go ahead. I think I know what you're talking about. He did say when we were at the high school, and he would be like the bearer of bad news, he would be the designee to communicate that to the families. But based on the parameters, like, I don't think he can overrule or say if some student passed and he can't say no. Or if some student didn't pass, he can't override it and say yes. I think he's the designated person to communicate it. And I believe Mr. Swanson, the administration at the Birch Grove is the panel that's executing the testing and such. Is that I feel that that's what, I know what you're saying, because I remember him saying him being the bearer of bad news.
Yeah. I'm just in the regards of transparency and other things that go on in the world, I'm not a fan when there's just one person making a final determination.
I don't think he
like
can
to
make
have
the
multiple
determination.
fail safes, because you never know what an agenda of one person. I'm not saying he is, I'm just saying this policy could be here 17 years from now, right? Like, so.
I don't think it says that he's the one who makes the final decision. That doesn't say that. He's the one that gets to be the communicator.
All right.
Of that perspective.
All right. All right, thank you. Yes, good.
Any other questions?
I do have one, just to follow up. If it's cuspy, is it still the group? Like, oh, well, they did good here, not so good here, it's iffy. Like, is it still the group of people that are doing the testing, the reading, the math? They make the determination, they say, Dr. Willett, here is.
Yeah, so it's a series of cutoffs. And yes, they deliver it to me, and I say, here are the results. And somebody might say, I'm really upset with this, and I meet with them and talk to them about it. Now, if there was some anomaly, like an earthquake happened, or some kind of thing that really upset the environment or something, I might say, I want you to retest them. Right? I'm glad that you met with me. Let's retest them, that kind of thing. But the whole purpose of doing it is to adhere to the threshold so that we don't inadvertently have students that end up in a grade that they were not they were not developmentally ready for, and then they end up in intervention.
So I understand.
So I don't just say, yay or nay based on my own.
No, I just want to make sure that these other fail safes are in place and.
I mean, to be frank with you, the state made it the admin.
Oh, I know that.
They
That's
ended up
my
making
right.
it
It was
principal,
yes.
But they made it the admin, so when, they that structure was the structure the state put on. Now, the previous structure used to be the board.
Yes.
And so I didn't change that, they did, and in this district, we don't have, we don't have 100 different people. So it's always gonna be sort of my designee, It may not be, if for some reason the principal's not somebody who's trained in this area, I might designate other people to be part of that versus.
Thank you.
But,
yeah. We can move on to a vote. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, I will entertain a motion.
Group changes and updates to policy 5302 homeless students.
No,
No, it's the home one.
It's 5,800.
Here we go. No. Where's a long way?
Page 48. 48. John.
Oh, goodness.
Motion to approve policy, good lord, motion to approve policy and regulation 5800, admissions to the public schools at or before the age of 5.
Any discussion? No. All right, James, aye. Rainey.
Aye.
Brian. Aye. Bill. Aye. An aye. Jen.
Aye.
Dana.
Aye.
Katie.
Aye.
Dan.
Aye.
Right, Dr. Willett. Dana, you have a policy.
Thanks.
All right, as discussed, the executive session, we are moving to the next meeting, public participation. Again, 2-minute limit, comments limited to items on this agenda. I will alternate between people in the room and online. If you would like to speak, Bill, if I can get you to move your head. There you go. If you would like to speak, please raise your virtual hand or raise your hand in the room and you will be called on. Again, if you'd like to speak, please raise your hand. All right, seeing none. We'll close public participation, move on. Points of interest. Would anybody from the board like to speak?
Okay.
Sure.
I just want to say thank you to everyone. This was another hard conversation. You know, there's a referendum vote Tuesday. Number are we on? 4? I just think it's imperative that, you know, everyone realizes that, you know, you just witnessed a very long, hard conversation. The conversations are going to keep being long and hard. There's a lot of emotions around this vote. I would just say that I'm hopeful that we will not be back in this room again, making more and impacts to students. I think that we're all exhausted. I think the community is exhausted. I think our students deserve the right to know that what they think that they're going to have for course options next year can finally be finalized, and these, you know, notes going home saying, you know, you can't take this or you can't take that. I think that needs to come to an end. I think our staff deserves the right to be able to know how they can plan going forward. I'd again like to thank our staff. I know that the things that we have done again tonight are going to increase the burden upon them. Again, I'm very grateful that we have the strong staff that we have, because I do believe that they can do it. And I'm so grateful that they're willing to do it. So I just would like everyone to keep that in mind when they decide to vote on Tuesday.
All right, and then just to sum that up, and in my opinion, you know, under the assumption that we get past this, as we've talked about, we don't want to be in this situation. So I think we've got a lot of things ideas we brought up. I know that previously both Katie and Jacob, the council leadership, has absolutely shown a willingness to listen and to talk. I know from in my perspective, we absolutely were going to take advantage of that. This isn't over. Whatever happens with this budget isn't over. We'll get there. Any other comments?
Maybe know how much it cost every time we go to referendum for the town.
I thought it was.
Yeah, that was fine.
I thought there was a range they gave.
I'm just saying, if we're trying to save our taxpayers money, I think it even was. I'm sure this is cost.
I
A lot of money always.
would absolutely. Absolutely.
Huh? What did you say?
They got that truck sale, so.
I would recommend to each, you know, to each person in their own way, voice their thoughts, their opinions, advocate for where you feel. I thought I saw another hand raised. Katie, was that you or are you good?
Yeah, it was me. Sorry. It's very late, so, yeah, I just would support what Jen was saying and Dana was saying about the expense of it and, be cautious that inside this room, we have an understanding amongst ourselves about what it means when we're passing these budgets and what our expectation is. And that, the way that the town council views these things is that if the referendum fails, then that means that it's too high. And that might not be the way that everybody thinks about it, but we have to understand that that is the lens that through which the council will continue, I would assume, considering what's happened the last few times, to view any kind of no vote. So, as unfortunate as that is, and I understand completely where people are coming from when they decide that they're going to vote no for, their own reasons that have to do with it being too low. I think we have to be realistic about, that doesn't seem to be translating. So I just would point that out, I guess, and you have to go and vote your conscience and what is you feel is best.
Thank you. Dr. Willett, before we close, any comments on your?
Just to explain. You're putting back Lexia for 25. You're putting back ESY for 30, and the ERF reduction was 100. So replace that with 120 reduction. You have a 35,000.
No, we're not talking about totally replacing the ERA.
Okay, that's where I'm off.
Yeah.
Right.
I just want to make
We
sure.
know there's gonna be some still coming out of the ERA.
It should be
Gonna be-
35.
You're not totally, I'm sorry. I just wanted to
Yeah.
make sure.
Should be
Okay.
35 coming out of ERA
Okay, got it.
Right.
So then that takes care.
instead of
I
the.
just wanted to make
Right.
sure. I was 100% sure before we left. Now I.
Good. All right.
Dr. Willett, when it's updated, could you make sure that that gets posted online so that people are able to view the changes before they vote?
Sure. Yes, I will post this document with the whole.
To the budget tab.
And
of
what
Board of
any
Education
decisions are
website.
made tonight, I will adapt it all, but I think I have the last 2 times over that.
And just to remind everybody, the reductions are the amalgamation of everything, not just what was discussed today, the entire continuum. That being said, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Second.
You asking for a second?
You can't say.
I'll second.
Okay. Discussion? Aye. Jake. Aye. Randy.
Aye.
Brian. Aye. Bill. Aye. Aye, Jen.
Aye.
Dan. Katie.
Hi.
Jan.
Aye.
All right, thank you, everybody. I appreciate your time, your efforts, and more to come.